Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge cycling podcast for the much awaited, much anticipated Tour de France 2022 preview presented by our show partners Zwift. Here with Benji. I'm nervous, but this is what we do best. This is what we train for. This is why we do Valenciana UAE Tour. The grind is all up to this date. We're going to run through quick introduction to the course. Then going to go through the GC favourites and their teams, including betting odds. Then the sprinters field and points jersey discussion with the sprinters teams. Then we'll go through the rest of the teams that don't fit into either of those two categories before going into the stage-by-stage analysis in detail with predictions of who will win that stage and what will happen in them. Then we'll go through for our who will win green, KOM, young jersey, and GC picks. So that will again test my knowledge of whether Pogacar is still eligible for the young jersey. He probably is. So there's been a lot of news going on. The INEOS team just got announced. We had a hard date, 9 a.m. Tuesday, 28th June, to record this, whether INEOS had announced or not. Maybe they knew that and they literally announced it at night. So anyway, that's great. So in the course, it starts in Denmark, the Grand Depart. In Copenhagen, there's a 13.5K technical city prologue-esque TT, but it's not a prologue. Stage 2, all these Danish stages look like sprint stages. Could be reduced bunches because of this second stage, 200Ks. They go over a long 20K bridge to Nyborg. Could be influenced by wind. Stage 3, much of the same. Could be windy. Could be a bunch of sprint, 180Ks to Sonderburg. Transition day, fourth day on the Tuesday. In a week, the Calais stage, punchy hills, and northern France could be miserable, could be windy. Difficult little sprint stage. Stage 5, Arenberg, cobbled stage. It's not like Roubaix, but there's cobbles, 144Ks. It's like half the length. Stage 6, the first punchers finished a long wee. 3 back-to-back punchy climbs at the end. Stage 7, Super Planche de Belfi, 8Ks, 8.5% with a gravel finish at the end. So we shouldn't have big GC gaps, just a few 30 seconds here or there at this point. Stage 8 to Lausanne, 183Ks, 5K, 5% finish, not a sprinter's day. Stage 9, the last day before the rest day, they have a 12K, 7% climb, then a descent, then a punchy kick up the Chateau du Soleil near the UCI, I think. That's, again, not the hardest GC day. Into the first rest day, stage 10, uphill 20K, 4% finish to Megève. Not expecting big GC stuff there until the Alps proper. Stage 11, Col du Granon, after Galibier, monster stage, 12Ks, 9%, straight into the next day, which has the Galibier other side, then Croix de la Fer, then Alpe d'Huez, nasty Alps. We'll see sprinters struggle before some transition, perfect break stages. Saint-Etienne, 193Ks, up and down all day. Then Mendy finished, 3Ks, 11%, perfect for Roglic on stage 14. Another sort of break stage to Carcassonne, 200Ks. You're not hearing much about sprinters at this point. Foix has 2 sort of 12K, 7% climbs, 20 to 25-minute climbs, but a descent finish. Not a sprinter's day. Then the Pyrenees, stage 17 to Périgueux, back-to-back 8K, 7% climbs all day, but a short stage, 130Ks before the Alta-Cam stage. The last big mountain test, Spandel into Alta-Cam's nasty, before the typical stage 19 transition day, and then a 40.5 kilometer TT before Champs-Élysées. Flat TT, but more rolling than you think. What stands out to you about that parcours, Benji, which I just tried to rapid fire? What's the like parts of that parcours that you think will be the most decisive?
I think there's a few phases in the race. I think the most important 2 days of this race for me are the Alp stages, stage 11 and 12 being that Col du Granon and Alpe d'Huez stage. Those are stages that go to high altitude where the real capitulation of riders can happen. If a rider has a bad day, they can lose multiple minutes there, and that's where damage can be done, and that's where even a Pogacar can get in trouble if the conditions for that are right, and if the competition really pushes through to make that happen, for example. But this is not the only moment in this Grand Tour where stuff can happen, obviously. We've got that initial week that is going to be rather chaotic, I feel like. There's options for echelons on multiple stages. We've got the cobble stage on Arenberg, where you can't necessarily win the race, I think, depending on the weather. If it's good weather, you can't necessarily win the race. If it's rainy, you might be able to gain a few minutes like Nibali did in 2014, for example, but you can definitely lose the race if you've got a puncture, a crash, something like that, like Chris Froome a few years ago crashed on the cobble stage, ended up falling out of that Tour de France. Was it 2014? I think it was. But in general, that's
Mate, that was the
also
Nibali one when he got
yeah,
gifted.
yeah, gifted. How dare you? That is an insult. Anyway, when it comes to this first week, just pretty chaotic. Then that long week stage, that's a bit of a less one, I'd say, when it comes to GC. But it's really a factor where in this first week you can lose the race, but not necessarily win it, I think, unless you use opportunities with echelons to try and gain time on competitors. But yeah, it's really the competitors not really winning the race then. They're losing the race then, in my opinion. But when it comes to that third week, Pyrenees, it's still all to fight for. That Peraguda stage, we've spoken about the Alp stages being high altitude, being longer climbs. I feel like Peraguda stage 17, is a bit of a shorter climbing experience. Do you feel that fits a certain rider like Pogacar over a Roglic or something?
Fits Pog, but it's 140 Ks, and his team would have to make it so hard, or others would have to crumble. Like, that's not like Ardennes or Portet. It's like 20-minute drafting, 7% climbs. I don't see that. I just don't see that. I think it's the Spandel Altacam combo is the nasty pairing in the Pyrenees. Peraguda does have a steep finish, but I think that suits Roglic more. Hopefully they're tight by the time we get there. But yeah, it's a race of really stark contrast where there can be big time gains and losses. You have trouble in the wind or in the cobbles or Calais, can lose a lot of time. You crack at high altitude and someone has teammates ahead, you can lose a lot of time. The TT, 40 and a half Ks, Rolly, like a 45, 50-minute TT after 3 weeks of racing, you can gain and lose a lot of time. So before we get into the GC odds, mention our show partner, Zwift. Zwift is the perfect training playground with training plans, structured interval sessions, or group workouts at your disposal. No traffic lights and some flat courses too mean it's perfect for a recovery spin, which is how MVDP has used it after big training blocks and preparing for the Tour de France. To get involved and join Zwift's massive community, head to Zwift.com for your free 7-day trial. And most importantly, during the tour, join the LRCP Zwift Club using the link down below. You can join Benji and I for rides during the Tour de France, ad hoc ones. We'll just jump into Zwift and you can jump on with us and join us for live chat during the stage on the Discord. But now we'll get into the GC odds, Benji. We've got Pogacar $1.70 with Jonas and Roglic at $5 each. That's a bit softer, obviously, on Betfair. They're a bit longer, sort of at sixes. Thomas is fourth favourite at 15. Martinez, his teammate, at 19. Vlasov, who's been announced, is 19 after he pulled out of Swiss with COVID. Then it's O'Connor, 34. Mas, 34. Haig, 41. Caruso, 41. Yates, 41. Fuglsang, 50s. So I'm just going to say, like, Pogacar's very short, Benji. He's been that short all year, or for about a year, and he's the overwhelming favourite. But when we look at his team, Pogacar, Bennett, Bjerg, Trentin, Sterker-Langen, Micah, McNulty, Soler. No Hirschi who had COVID. That's very short for a guy with a team that I don't think is very good.
Yeah, I believe that there's been this question for a few times this year already. Is Pogacar overrated at certain parts of the year? And when it comes to Milano Sanremo, it was pretty obvious that he was, because people expected him to blow away everybody on the Cipressa already, solo, and just ride to the finish line. That was not going to happen. That was literally impossible to happen. But when it comes to the Tour de France, I feel like it's a thinner line. It's not that black and white. It's a bit of a gray zone where when you look at the parcours, that first chaotic week, Pogacar's a rider that can handle chaotic stuff in a solo way quite well. But when it comes to his team surrounding him, that's where it's indeed a bit weaker. Like, can this team make sure that he gets out of trouble in this first week? And I think that's also held by the fact that they've got not Hirschi, but for example, Vegard Sterker-Lange there. I think that's a bonus for that first week. But is that strong enough to make that work? And that's where I'm like, I'm not so sure about that. Because if you look at the support for that first flat week, you see that I'd consider Trentin an important rider for that, the most important in his team to help him out there, together with Vegard Stekelengen and Mikael Bjerg. I don't expect George Bennett to mean much on cobble stage, on echelons. Rafa Maika, McNulty, and Soler. Perhaps McNulty could help out. He was pretty strong at a Bink Bank Tour, I think, in previous years. That showed that he could ride on cobbles and so forth. But echelon-wise, I'm not sure for him either. So it's low on support for avoiding the chaos in week one, I'd say. When it comes to the climbing, I trust Pogacar more to be able to solve issues that he's having to deal with. That makes sense?
Yeah, but okay, let's look at 2020. Didn't need a team really. They were okay on Col de la Loze. Then you had De La Cruz, but just follow Jumbo, train around France for 3 weeks, then win the TT. Very simple. 2021, his team didn't have him in good position on stage 3 when Hay crashed out. He nearly missed that, nearly crashed there. She was lucky to avoid it. He then had INEOS pace the first mountain stage in the cold. Richie Porte was his best domestique. And then Formolo put on the finishing touches, who's not in this race. And then he took 3.5 minutes and he'd already taken a minute in the TT and he went into the first rest day on 5 minutes. So it's pretty easy to look good with a 5.5 minute lead in the Tour de France. I think it's pretty easy to control and look good. I know it's never easy, but with Roglic crashing out, I don't think the team was really tested last year. The big test was stage 7. They couldn't control it at all. They've not controlled messy starts to stage as well in the last 2 years. Basque Country stage 6 at all. And I think Bjerg, Trentin, Stekelengen, compared to, say, some of the other rouleurs on other squads is not as good. And so the first week is going to be very concerning for UAE. I think Trenton's the only guy that's finished Roubaix on UAE in 4 years, maybe apart from Christoph. So and the other thing is, what if he is behind? We talked about that Périgord stage, Benji. It's not that hard. Do you trust Soler, Micah, Bennett, McNulty to be able to set a pace hard enough to, say, reduce a group to 7 guys?
Oh, that's a difficult situation, But then you look at, for example, the contrast versus 2020 where he was behind. But has Pogacar become better since then? That's also a question. Because in 2020, he was behind for the majority of that, didn't have the team to force much on mountains, and therefore had to play it on the final time trial and win it there. So if that situation occurs here, will he be strong enough compared to 2020, for example, to actually make that difference over Jonas, Primož, and perhaps Domestiques there? Because I don't see UAE being able to reduce the team of Jumbo to solely Jonas and Primož unless Pogacar goes himself. So there's difficulties there, I think, for Pogacar. And I don't think it's as easy as Pogacar is going to attack and the entire team of Jumbo is going to drop. It doesn't really work like that, I think.
Well, I believe that on Périgord that he didn't drop Roglic. Roglic let him go and could have followed if he wanted to. So in stage races, uphill, he doesn't just. I know there's a mythical awe around Pogacar, but we're trying to encourage you in this preview. We're both of the belief that if they go into the Alps and we have people that haven't crashed out, etc., like last year, we think there's going to be a huge fight in this Tour de France, and that it's going to be a lot more difficult for Pogacar than maybe people think. You can't just on 8K 7% be like, I'm just going to ride away from Roglic now. It's not how it works. At least we hope so. Maybe we'll be wrong, but I think it'll be a big fight. The second favourites team, both the second and third favourites, is Jumbo-Visma. They bring Roglic, Benoot, Kruijswijk, Koes, Laporte, Van Aert, Van Hooijdonk, Jonas, Vingegaard. Now, Dennis was mooted to be in the team on the shortlist for a long time, but I think he got sick, had stomach issues at Swiss. He's out, and Van Hooijdonk is in. That is one of the strongest rouleur squads. Like Van Hooijdonk, Van Aert, Laporte, Benoot for the Cobbled Classics was ridiculous in E3, Gent-Wevelgem type races. Maybe a bit light on climbing. What do you see that this team is doing, Benji? I feel like their selection is a tip to how they think the race will be won or lost.
I think so as well. I think there's a lot to it when it comes to those rollers being important in week one, when it comes to trying to, first of all, steer away from chaos themselves and avoiding losing time with the Roglic and so forth. But also, when they see opportunities, they could perhaps use those opportunities to get an advantage in that first week, because otherwise, you don't send all these rollers to this race, I would dare to say. But I agree with the fact that when it comes to the climbing aspect, there's something missing. Like, obviously, Roglic and Vingegaard, those are like top tier climbers, but those are the leaders. So if you look at the climbing support, then we've got Kus, Kruiswijk, and Van Aert and Benoot, basically. Or do you consider Van Hooydonk's climbing enough to be able to support in early parts of the mountains?
It depends on the pace. I think he can get over soft-paced ones like Laporte can. I don't think he can really do much damage on them at all. I don't really think he can get in a break on the proper mountain stages and be in the valley on the other side either. I think you raise an important point, which is Kruiswijk on Solaizon, crazy level, really good performance. But that's once. And by and large, he's not been good the last 2 years. Koos is hot and cold. He's had he pulled out of Swiss. He wasn't training very much, but then inside line, except it's literally on Strava and public. But yeah, I saw him descending Arcalis. I was going the other direction, and he took the KOM on Arcalis near me, which is where Jan Ulrich stormed to victory like 30 years ago. Huge tailwind, but his numbers look good on Strava. He looks like he's back in good shape. So that's really good, but he's hot and cold. And Benoit's climbing in Dauphiné, Benji, was underwhelming. It was not the Olympics. Mikuni passed Benoit. So, but I think they're not going for train choo-choo. I think it has to be two-pronged, because otherwise you just have to, the danger is they're light on climbing, and then they have to fold Jonas into a domestique role chasing. And I think that's the big problem for them.
I think that's something they need to avoid as long as possible, because I think the way to try and beat Pogacar is not have a Roglic versus Pogacar fight solo. We've seen that in 2020. It ended up backfiring in the time trial. I think they won the situation where they can play multiple cards until it's absolutely necessary to fold one into a domestique role. Even if it's the other way around, let's say Jonas ends up being very strong, because at the Dauphiné, I'd argue that Jonas was better when it comes to the climbing than Primož, based on the Solaizon finish, for example. And if you then push that forward to the Tour de France, what if it's the other way around? What if Jonas is performing better by the end of week 2, for example? Will you see situations where Roglic might be either the more aggressive GC candidate to try and force something, or a rider that will eventually fold into a domestique role? Or do you just never see that happening?
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. Depends on the time gaps, of course. But I think if they take a lead before the Pyrenees, then the onus is on the other teams to try and do something. One of whom just has been announced. The INEOS Grenadiers have their most of the team we expected. No Kwiatkowski. He announced he had a leg issue yesterday. He won't be participating. It's the old guard of Castroviejo, Van Baal, Rowe, and Thomas. So we've seen them in the tour many times, as well as Ganna, Martinez, Pidcock, and Adam Yates. So Pidcock and Adam Yates have obviously been deemed fit. Their two GC leaders are Martinez and Thomas. Martinez looked good at the end of Swiss, and Thomas obviously won Swiss, looking in good shape. By the way, I think he mentioned in his podcast with Cadel Evans, he saw the article or maybe the graph about his performance, and he's getting mad about it. Don't know why. Maybe because it said that he was in his 2018 shape, but that wouldn't be good enough to win. Because he's like, numbers don't mean anything. Anyway, Ganna's for the opening TT. They've got the strong rulers in Roubaix winner and Luke Rowe. Dylan Van Baal, and Luke Rowe and Thomas. They're just going to have to full send week 1, Benji. That's the only thing I see with this team, is they have to throw shit at the wall. That's probably not the right analogy. They just have to send week 1 with their rulers and hope there's chaos and hope everyone crashes behind, and then somehow they podium that way.
Exactly. It's a team that has the support for week 1 to create chaos. They've got Ganna, Rowe, and I don't know, when it comes to Pidcock, I feel like he can also be quite supportive in setting things up in that first week. Castro's very versatile in that aspect, and Van Baarle is definitely a key man in all terrains, but I fear that making a chaotic first week will have a bad influence on Adam Yates, I feel like. I don't trust Adam Yates for a chaotic first week. It's as simple as that for me. When it comes to Martinez and Thomas, I feel like Thomas is great in a chaotic first week, but he needs to avoid crashing himself, which is a big factor last year, for example. But I feel like he hasn't crashed this year, right? In races? I haven't seen it, at least.
I don't think he has. He probably will have. He only crashes. It's better that they're doing something. He crashes when he goes to sleep in nothing stages, when he just hits a speed bump and takes out Hessing. I think there's a possibility they full send first week. They make Yates and Martinez lose time. They get to the Alps and the Pyrenees, and then Thomas loses bulk time, and then it's all bad. So that's a pretty big possibility that, yeah, Thomas won't stack up on the big climbs. But Pidcock, Benji, like, what's his role in this team? Like, Rodriguez is a much more natural fit to me.
A commercial vessel for the Netflix show is what I see. Now, on a serious note, I think there's opportunities for him in Longwy, for example, to go for a stage, but it doesn't fit in the rest of the team for me. Like, I don't see him as the domestique rider, although he was a good domestique on, what was it, that stage where Bernal went long in the Vuelta last year?
Yeah, on the Covadonga stage, he was good. Him, Puccio, and Sivakov were very strong.
Is that something he can replay into this Tour de France in a second or third week on proper mountains? Or do you think that it's not that viable on a high altitude stage, for example?
I mean, they were sort of punchy, like 6K, 7% climbs, I think, and they were steady pacing. And Sivakov did the real hard last pull on Collada Yomena. He did a good work, Pidcock, but yeah, it's different, as you say, in the big mountains. What's his shape like after being sick? Same with Yates. Yates as well. Is Yates a domestique? He's come fourth in the Tour before. Is he? I would say the INEOS experience, he's out of contract there, has not been an overwhelming success so far. Is he part of a trident? Because I think he should just be a domestique for Thomas and Martinez.
I think he shouldn't have been in the team in the first place. Is that harsh to say? I feel like I'd rather see a Carlos Rodriguez who is a full domestique and arguably with Strade experience likely can get over the cobbles and help out there as well, and in chaotic terrain seems to be pretty good as well, to be a supportive domestique in this race than Adam Yates, who will be that tertiary leader that is not sure if he even survives the first week. I don't know. I'm not sold on Adam Yates for this race at all when it comes to leadership.
Maybe we're thinking about it in too linear a Skinios fashion, Benji, and maybe they're not domestiques. Pidcock, Ganna, Yates are there to hunt stages and go in breakaways, and Ganna's obviously going to go for the first stage in the TT. Maybe they're thinking about it that way, in which case it does make sense to have that sort of team construction. And maybe it is a good idea to not, if I was them, I would do that, because I'm not sure it would make too much a difference sort of chaining those guys the entire time. Other big GC teams, Bora-Hansgrohe, they have changed the team probably the most of anybody. They bring Vlasov in. They got a special kit for the Tour. It's like white flag Vlasov. It looks like a Belarusian flag almost, the kit, which is like, Jesus. It's not. But anyway, Vlasov, Kemner, Conrad, Haller, Groschartner, Pollitt, Schachmann, Van Poppel, Sam Bennett's out. They bring sort of no sprinter. Danny Van Poppel will be able to go for himself with a lead out of Haller and Pollitt, which, then, good luck. And Pollitt won a stage last year. And then Kamner backs up from the Giro, so he's been a busy boy, but he's got a contract extension. Conrad won a stage last year. I don't really understand the team. Like, is it focused on GC? I've sort of said they're focused on GC, but I look at this team, and to me, it just looks like a stage hunting team in transition stages and in medium mountain stages, and Vlasov will be fending for himself. Or can it do both?
I think it's a situation where both is probably the thing. In the past, we'd have expected Sam Bennett to be in this team with support the likes of Ryan Mullen, Van Poppel as lead out, that I think Haller was in that train as well. So just in general, we are missing part of that train, and we're seeing that Van Poppel seems to be the man for the sprints here with Marco Haller as support. And I think that's probably a good decision to leave Bennett out of the race based on the form he had in the last year. But it also opens up extra spots for climbers or stage hunters, because what would have happened if the entire train of Bennett was in this race? Who would have been missing of the other riders? That's what I'm curious about. Would we not have a Grosjean? Would Kemna not have ridden the Tour de France, for example? And those are questions I'm curious about, but I feel like there's definitely support for Vlasov there. Like Kemna,
Is there though?
Grosjean, I feel like there is Schachmann, Grossschartner, Kemna. Those are riders you can build on medium mountain stages. When it comes to the high mountains, you're gonna have trouble, I think, with that squad, and that's where those Alps will come in, and where Vlasov might have trouble in the Alps with this team. But if you're in the Alps, like there's other teams that will take it up for him. Like he just needs to survive those stages. The other stage where he can do stuff, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm looking at Planche de Belfi stage, and they should be hard pacing for Vlasov. Vlasov, they need to try and win that stage. It's the perfect climb for him. 20 minutes, quite steep, punchy finish. Like, if even a gravel finish, it's like the Maigmo Tibi stage he won in Valenciano. It's almost like the same duration. I just think Kemna, Conrad, Grossschartner, Schachmann, it's four very similar riders. None of them are really, really good in the high mountains, like a Micah. Kemna's probably actually the best pure climber on his day. I would keep Kemna because he's a gun and because I like him. And Conrad won a stage last year, so hard to leave him out. What is Schachmann? Like Schachmann and Grossschartner, like I think they got to drop one of them, and they should have brought another rouleur for the first week. Like I would have brought Mullen, to be honest, because of the crosswinds. And I'm like, I know Van Poppel, Haller, and Pollitt. Pollitt's not been as good this year. I know. I just think they have four of the same rider, and in that case for Vlasov, I'm not sure how it will go in both the extreme difficult flat stages and in the extreme high mountains. But he would have been probably fourth favourite had he not had COVID, but now his odds have dropped a little bit. The other GC team, Movistar, not confirmed yet, but they'll have Mars, Verona. Verona's looking in good shape. Izagira Jorgensen, I think, makes his tour debut. Mühlberger, Oliveira, Erviti, so much of the same. And then Garcia Cortina for the flat stages. Mas, I think, will be going for a top 5. And it's a fine team. Jorgensen's actually really good. When Jorgensen's contract is up, the team should come hunting for that lad. He's quality. Fourth last year, O'Connor at AG2R brings Bouchard, Chirel, Cosnefroy, De Wolf, Narsen, and Paripantre. Jungels, I don't think it's a very good team, frankly, for support. And he looks, to be honest, I don't know why he's longer than Thomas and Martinez. I think O'Connor is clearly better than Thomas, even though there's the long TT. But Benji, like, who's going to be there in a group of 10 or 12 or 15 out of that group on a mountain stage? And Narsen and De Wolf actually is good support on the cobble stages.
Yeah, certainly. Those are supportive on a cobble stage. The fact that Greg van Avermaet is not in this race for that team, I'm not bothered by it at all. I don't think he deserves that spot necessarily, but I agree that there's no real support when it comes to the end phase of races for Ben O'Connor in mountain stages. But was that expected from AG2R? I felt like he was always going to be that rider that was going to be solo from his team in the last stretch of a mountain stage. He signed up as a GC leader at this team, which is AG2R. So is it not expected to be having no real support in the mountains if you're in that squad, knowing that they made that switch to cobbles with half their team spending loads of budget on that? I wasn't expecting more than this person. I think he's going to be in survival mode in most of the climbs and see where opportunities lie and try and attack low-key on stages where he sees opportunities and has the energy for it at the end of mountain stages. But I think we're talking about these outsiders, these secondary GC riders now, and I think their race will be made by the battle above them. I think once you've got a group of 10 in a mountain stage, the battle is going to be made by Jumbo and UAE and so forth. And the other riders will be trying to survive, holding on to whoever gets away of those two, So I feel like it's more the survival there that matters than being able to create opportunities for yourself in the mountains. That makes sense?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I doubt at any point O'Connor's going to be like, you know what I need to do on the Spandell stage is I need my team to really light this up. Maybe he would. I don't know. If Thomas is above him before the TT, maybe he actually would want that. But these are unlikely. It's more like most likely is Jumbo or UAE, one of them will be behind each other and they will light up that climb, as Benji said, and he's just hanging on. So I still think, yeah, I mean, I say it's a bit of a weak team, but what else can they bring? It's not like AG2R are stacked behind him. The last GC team really to mention is Bahrain. They got Caruso and Haig, supported by Turns, Tranik, Wright, Morridge, Sanchez, and Gradek. And they will probably go for a lot of stages and then help. And then whoever is stronger out of Caruso and Haig will be the leader. So, I mean, in terms of GC, Benji, I do agree with you. It's like it really is that tier at the top. And then it's the fight for, say, the podium is really on too. And of course, everything can change. But we could really see Mas, O'Connor, Thomas, Martinez, Caruso, or Haig fighting for that podium spot in the third week while the other two battle ahead of them. So that'll be really interesting as well, and see how they go. But yeah, before we get on to the sprinters field, is there any other GC guys I'm disrespecting? Nairo, I don't really see it. Godu, is there anyone else you think that is a top 5 candidate?
Will Roberto Uran get his top 10 once again? That's a real question.
Is he
I
going?
personally don't think so. Well, I think he's going, but I don't think he'll get his top 10. Nonetheless, that aside, I want to talk about the aspect that it depends on Jumbo whether the opportunity is there for other teams for that third spot in the GC, because if Jumbo played really offensively, one of their two leaders can actually lose time as a consequence of trying something pretty aggressive. And that's when opportunities rise for the others to get that third podium spot. If Jumbo would play it really defensively and they just play it with Jonas and Primoz and they're fine with second and third on GC at certain stage of this race, then it might just be Poggi, Vingegaard, and Roglic for that top 3. So I think the opportunity for that third spot in GC, or even second, depending on how the race evolves, Slovenians can also crash, We don't hope so, obviously. But you see the same? Like that, it depends on Jumbo
yes
kind of
and
whether
no.
that
Yes and no,
there.
because let's run through your hypothetical scenario where Jonas goes up the road and then Roglic is in the group behind. He's still in the group behind. So at what point will he be losing time in the mountains to Thomas or Mas? He has to have a terrible day. Like, the idea is still not to deliberately lose time. And then the TT, him and Jonas compared to Mas, O'Connor, not Thomas. Thomas TT looks ridiculous. Their TTs will give them another 2 minutes back. So I think the podium is going to be most open because someone's going to fuck up on the cobbles or in the first week.
Okay, I agree there. And there's also the aspect of what if Jonas indeed goes early and goes up the road and so forth, and eventually he's caught again and he capitulates from making that move.
Like
That's where I
Bernal
see the danger,
Covadonga.
perhaps. Yeah, exactly. That's where I see an opportunity for another rider to benefit from that and actually take time on that rider. But that scenario where they actually have to go early and so forth, or they just have a bad day, one of the two Jumbo guys, or Pogacar, who knows?
Yep, it's possible. And I think, shooting for the podium, I wouldn't just shoot for top 5. I would shoot for podium if I was O'Connor, Mas, Thomas, and co. But I would not. If I was the Movistar director, and you're going to hate this, or the AG2R director, I would give up on winning before the first day. If Jumbo or UAE attack on say, not Super Planche, you should try and follow there. But I'm talking in the Alps. If they're trying crazy shit, I would just play for third. And I'm sorry if I would. Like, I'd play for third and hope
Agreed.
that one of the top 3 crash out or have an issue. Anyway, let's get into the sprinters teams now. We have Wout van Aert as the overwhelming favorite for the green jersey, about similar odds to Pogacar, $1.60, $1.70 sort of range. And he basically has Van Hooydonk and Laporte as his men, it looks like, to help with the lead outs or the green jersey. But the proper sprinters, team we haven't mentioned yet, Quickstep Alpha Vinyl Team. Much controversy yesterday, Benji. They do not bring Mark Cavendish to the Tour de France, equal with Eddie Merckx's record for Tour de France stage wins. They bring Lampard, Asgren, Gattagno, De Klerk, Baggioli, Honoré, Jakobsen, Mercu, 3 Danes for a Danish Grand Depart. No Seneschal, the French national champion, and Cavendish just won the British national champs. It's been a huge blow up, and I think Cav just posted a thing, or Sportser did, about Cav having a call with Jakobsen, so it's all good between them. Let's talk about the Cav thing first. He said he found out about it via social media. I think he deliberately was riling up the British public a little bit. Do you think he deserved to go in a vacuum, and do you think he deserved to go on this Quickstep roster?
I think in the majority of teams, he would be at this Tour de France, 100%. But if we look at this Quickstep roster, they've got their sprint train. They've got Fabio Jakobsen as one of the 2 best sprinters of this season, arguably the most successful one, quite certainly. And when you've got that, it's very hard to look past somebody like that. So you have to select Fabio Jakobsen as your sprinter here in this race. But can you combine that with Cavendish also being at this race? And that's where I'm like, I don't think so. I don't see that. And a reason where I don't see it, you would. I know you would. But I don't see that because we saw it before, them trying to combine sprinters. What's Schelde Prize last year, where Alpecin basically destroyed them as a consequence because Cavendish and Ben were basically riding in each other way as well. So I don't know. I don't see it as a good solution to take 2 sprinters to the race that both will want to sprint on the same sprint stages, especially in a Grand Tour that doesn't have many flat sprint stages in the first place.
So this is how you do it. Fabio gets to do all the sprints in the first until the Alps, right? And then Cav's not allowed to compete. He has to drop at 5Ks to go. He helps as the lead out as 4th last man. Then Fabio's going to OTL in the Alps, and Cav won't. And then Cavendish gets to break the record in British National Champs jersey on Champs-Elysees. It's a genius plan. If I'm specialized and I'm sponsoring Quickstep and I see there's no Remco, no Alaphilippe, by the way, who haven't mentioned, he's out because he hasn't recovered from the Liège crash, which is a real shame for the race. He's taken yellow 3 years in a row, I think, and a stage win 3 years in a row. And that sucks for like the long wee stages. He's out, no Remco, no Cav, no Alaphilippe. I'm like, fucking hell, like it's a bit of a marketing nightmare. And I think I'm talking sort of PCM mode here, like taking 2 sprinters. I do think the level between Cavendish and Jakobsen is closer than we think. People are like, oh, well, Jakobsen's won 10 races this year. Cav's won more World Tour races. Jakobsen's won 1 World Tour race, and that's a bit disingenuous because Kerner, obviously, he's not World Tour, but he smacked Ewan after Quickstep brought it back with no lead out. But he's not just been cleaning up World Tour races. In Hungary, he got sat down by Groenewegen on one of the stages. He parked him. And yeah, like, okay, Elfstead and Ronde Baloise is pretty good as well. I do think Cav has had, like the Giro, people are, oh, well, he didn't have great results in the Giro. He won the first sprint stage of a Grand Tour when he actually had Mercu. Mercu abandoned after 5 or 6 stages. His lead out was absolutely horrendous for the other stages. No lead out. UAE, he was really good. So I do think the level is closer than people think. As Benji said, how much would Bora pay to be able to take Cav with their lead out?
Exactly, but also the aspect of that Giro, like there was also a stage where Milano basically dive bombed into their train and had an effect on that race as well in that way. So I agree that Cavendish was pretty damn strong at the Giro, but I'm still not a fan of combining them, Cavendish and Jakobsen, in this Tour de France. And it's also for team dynamics, and perhaps the team dynamics also have an influence on Seneschal not being there, because do you think there's still the grudge from Jakobsen after last year's Vuelta stage at Seneschal? No?
Seneschal's been in the lead out for the last 6 of Jakobsen's wins this year, and they've been at higher level. No, I think the grudge should be the other way. Seneschal should be like, that was a bit unreasonable. I think, in all seriousness, on sporting merit, you should probably take Jakobsen. In terms of what I want to see as someone covering cycling in the English-speaking media, obviously I want Cavendish to go. Like, it would be much better for the Tour, in my opinion. He's way bigger than Jakobsen. Even with the sort of comeback story for Jakobsen, I still think Cavendish is way bigger. Like the BBC was writing articles 10 minutes after his non-selection yesterday. That being said, Cavendish knew he extended with Quickstep. It has been known that Jakobsen was in the prime spot to go to the Tour the whole time. Cavendish was told to stay fit in case Jakobsen got COVID, in case he had the Sam Bennett Monaco doctor knee injury. It didn't happen. So I don't think Cav was under any illusions most of this year, especially when you get sent to the Giro and there's Jakobsen in the squad, like, you know. And I don't think Cav was actually, when he's like, I found out on social media. I know you maybe have a different view, Benji. I think he's playing the crowd. I don't think he actually is hurt.
I agree in that aspect, but I've also got the opinion that a good manager still goes to a rider that is on the close reserve list and says it personally before it's being brought out publicly. I think everybody in the team should be aware of the Tour de France team, for example, before it's brought out, whether that's drop it in a WhatsApp group to let them know internally before you bring it out on social media. I don't fucking know. He uses fucking pigeons with letters on it, probably.
Yeah. Oh,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I do. He should have, because just to avoid this backlash, because Mark's going to do this.
Exactly. And you know that certain riders are going to play into that, and Cavendish did so, and I can't blame him for that. I probably would have done the same.
I think I watched the British National Champs. I did a video yesterday, and there's a lot of angry comments under that. But yeah, like you see in the interview, Cav, he's kind of like winking. He's like, oh, maybe I'm good enough. But yeah, he's out. It's a big shame because he's top 5, top 6 sprinter in the world at the moment. Would that be the case if he wasn't on Quickstep? Maybe not. But it's so annoying. And this is why you have to blame him partially. He re-signed with Quickstep knowing this might happen, that we won't have one of those sprinters in the race. We don't have Merlier in the race. And next year, Benji, Merlier's coming in. Yeah, it's going to be another big fight between Jakobsen and Merlier. But yeah, they bring, I think we've glossed over Seneschal. That's the outrageous one. Like, I look at that, I'm like, what the fuck? How do you not bring the second last man for Jakobsen for a week one with Calais, Arenberg, Denmark, Seneschal, French national champ, when your train, by the way, has not been very good this year? The train is Asgreen, Lampard, Mercu. Lampard's second last man has not been that good. I think he's better in the Asgreen role. Like, we remember he had the Remco issues in Valenciana, the lead-outs maybe. Like, what's the Seneschal exclusion? Apparently he was told they wanted Honoré to be there for the Danish public. I'm sorry, I like Honoré, but does anyone know who he is? And there's 18 stages in France, and he's the French national champ. If you want to talk about exposure, the camera sees Tricolor, bang, onto the Tricolor. Like, talk about exposure. And Seneschal's better for this course.
Exactly. I find it utter bullshit that Honoré is being brought instead of Seneschal. I won't say that Honoré is a bad rider. I think Honoré is a rider that can definitely do stuff on this terrain. He's probably... I feel like he was always like second last man or something to Alaphilippe after Devenants quit that role, basically. So maybe an opportunity lied in that aspect. But Seneschal would have fit so well on that cobble stage, would have been so supportive for the sprint stages. I just don't see why he's not in this team, and I hate that excuse of we got to do it for commercial viability when it comes to the Danish market in terms of Honoré, because I don't see that. Sorry, but I do not see that. And then you look at Bajoli, like you say, and that's a rider that had a lot of talent at the start of his career. Punchy type, has a low-key sprint in a reduced group, then eventually got second in the Vuelta stage last year, won a French Ardèche, I think, or something, early season last year or the year before. Like, he's been popping his head out, but has not broken through, and I don't see it. I think he's a breakaway rider in this team, from what I can tell. Then, because what else can he do? Is he going to fight for a long wee? Are they going to ride for him?
They have to. You can't sabotage the train a little bit and not bring Seneschal, bring Honoré Bajoli, and not go for long wee. Like, I know Alaphilippe normally would have gone for it. He looks to me like the Alaphilippe replacement. So they have to go for it. Otherwise, they don't really. And like Catania apparently is in the team he'll pull like in the last 10Ks of stages and to maintain GC position after the TT before Arenberg. But Asgreen should be higher up in the TT or around that range as well. So it's not the best Quickstep team we've seen from both a performance or marketing perspective, particularly the train. Like if you're going to take Fabio, give Fabio like the best train possible. I know you want to hedge your bets with all these misc stages that do suit Honore Baggioli, but take one of them and then get Catania in the break with them. So yeah, Jakobsen coming in though with a lot of pressure as the probably premier sprinter in this race. Lotto Soudal bring Ewan with 0 of his normal train. They bring Frison Gilbert, Janze van Rensburg, who probably can't believe he's doing the Tour, Kroon, Van Moer, Vermeersch, Wellens, no Zelig, no Schwarzman, no De Boist for Ewan. To me, Benji, they have decided Ewan might win a stage, he might not. But we're not going to put a whole team into it, and we're going to bring a team that's able to do other things in the other stages.
I think they've also learned from the Giro quite a bit, in the sense that in the Giro they had their proper train. Yeah, they had some bad luck when it comes to someone getting hit by a motorbike. I think it was Klugor Zelig that was caught up in a crash that was inflicted by a motorbike, but in the end, that train never really worked out at the end of stages. And we've seen that so much in the last 2 years where the Lotto Soudal train couldn't bring you into a competitive position at the end of a sprint stage. And the most competitive position he was in was a stage where he was put by his team on the wheel of the Quickstep train, on the wheel of Cavendish. I think it was a stage where he got second to De Maar. And Janse van Rensburg is the kind of rider that I see as a relatively perfect pilot to put somebody in position at the end of a sprint stage. So I can see this work. I can see Caleb Ewan being put in a good position by Janse van Rensburg. But the Tour de France field is somewhat different even than the Giro, for example. I think it's going to be a lot harder to get into the right position to try and get a stage win here. And there's less opportunities to do so. They don't have 5 flat sprints, for example, to try and figure out what the best way is to do it and then actually pull it off. But I've got low-key confidence in Janse van Rensburg. This man had no contract at the start of the season, got picked up halfway, perhaps a bit too late because they missed out on South African NC points, but actually played a significant role in getting the least some results as well. And putting that forward into also going to the Tour de France, wonderful to see that for the rider. And I kind of like seeing where this goes. I don't know. I'm low-key bullish on Van Rensburg. I hope they get one stage win.
Very bullish on it.
I want to see one stage win. One.
Well, I mean, you got to come into the first week firing. Like there's 2 in the first 3 stages, then Calais, then it's Arenberg, and then that's it. You got to wait 2 weeks for another sprint. You got to come in firing. Like Bike Exchange bring Matthews, Bauer, Durbridge, Groenewegen, Amund, Grundle, Janssen, Jules Jensen, Mezget, Schultz. No Simon Yates. They're all in on Groenewegen sprints. Matthews, I presume they'll go for in Lausanne, Longwy type stages, but Groenewegen will cannibalize his green jersey points because he'll be going for Groenewegen in the pure bunch sprints. Alpecin have a similar thing with Van der Poel, Dillier, Gergel, Krieger, Philipsen, Plancart, Sparagli, Van Kiersbulk, who was good in sort of rebate stuff. That's maybe not their best team, not a balanced team either. Gogol maybe on the transition sort of up and down stages. But again, Van der Poel and Philipsen will cannibalize green jersey points from each other. No Ricard, he still has a health issue. So for both those teams, Benji, like I don't really... Neither of them obviously value green because they've brought teams which are incompatible with going for that. And also both of them have brought teams which really can't compete on over 50% of the stages at all.
Yep, exactly. Agree with that. It feels like it's a bit of a one-dimensional team in that aspect where they focus on two-dimensional technically. They've got their sprints and they've got their stage win opportunities. And that's the focuses they have, but not stage wins across the entire Tour de France like you mentioned. I do believe that Groenewegen is a far better sprinter than people think at the moment.
He's fast.
I think he's one of the fastest sprinters in the world still, but he just doesn't get the opportunities and perhaps position right in the majority of the ones he rides in that aspect. But like you say, when it comes to Matthews, I don't see the green opportunity there because Groenewegen will cannibalize his points. And when we look at Philipsen and Van der Poel, similar situations there. I do think Philipsen has likely an opportunity to go for green still, despite all of that. But he said he wouldn't, so I guess we have to believe Jasper Philipsen now. So he won't go for green, according to what he said. I think it was on. I read it on HLN, I think, which is a Belgian newspaper. But when I look at all these teams, for example, and all these sprinters across the board, and I look at the green jersey battle, I still see only one man that has like the golden ticket to getting this right, but he also has a team that might be incompatible with that goal depending on how we see it. Why do you think Wout van Aert is perfect to win the green jersey? And is it compatible with that yellow jersey fight?
Well, first of all, his competitors, as we've just said. Matthews, I think, if Bike Exchange went all in on green, Matthews can win green. But they're going for Groenewegen. So that's a problem. Number one. Van der Poel, same thing. We just said. His biggest competitor is, and then Jakobsen and co, they won't pick up enough points. He'll just be trying to survive. The biggest competitor is Pedersen, who's been on and off as well. He comes with Ciccone, Simmons, Galopin, Kirsch, Mollema, Sker, and Sturven. He'll get a lot of support. He's fast. He beat Wout in Pyrenees sprints. Can he get over the climbs? The reason, though, as Benji alluded to, that Wout is the short favorite is the points distribution, which we looked into a couple of weeks ago. You will not believe this points distribution. If it was geared towards pure bunch sprinter Cav last year, and remember, Matthews still pushed him close, within 40 points. This year, it's ridiculous. Longwy's 50 points, maximum points. Arenberg's 50 points, maximum points. There's 20 points in each of the two TTs. Carcassonne, Lausanne, 50 pointers. I think Saint-Etienne, 50 pointer. Megev, 30 pointer. And fifth on the Megev stage. Say Lushenko wins. That looks like break to me. Say we have break, 3 break guys win, and then it's a huge bunch. Montegual, they've done 5 horse per kilo up the climb. Wow can sprint for 5th and take more points for 5th than on Champs-Élysées 5th because it drops down less on the 30 pointers. So it's just so heavily geared towards him. And then even on the Carcassonne stage, for example, stage 15, like the intermediate sprints halfway up a 5K, 4% climb. And like it's just stacked towards him, Benji. Like, and Van der Poel said he wouldn't go for. I think Van der Poel could do it because you look at the Giro, he got in the break every day. And also, this is the other question you pose: will yellow be a problem for Wout? That's the biggest problem because Van der Poel getting in the break is a lot easier than Wout. Because when Van der Poel goes in the break, he's not a bunch sprint threat. He's not a GC threat. He's not a satellite rider. People are less likely to chase him. Do you think teams will chase Wout in, say, what's the stage after? Stage A, after Planche de Belfi. Say the yellow jersey's gone to the break. Lausanne stage, this intermediate sprints after a 6K, 4% climb, and it's a 5K, 4.5% punchy finish. I think we might see Bike Exchange not letting him in the break.
Yeah, for example, it's the green jersey teams that are then going to affect whether he can go in the break when so forth. And that's what happens on those transitioning stages. He'll have to fight the green jersey teams to try and get into breakaways and try and get those intermediate sprint points, which is a logical fight. But the less logical fight for me is when, for example, he is on a bigger mountain stage where he can both play a role to go for intermediate sprints and perhaps be a satellite rider for the opposing, for his GC leaders on a stage like that. Well, that's where it becomes troublesome because then he will have both the green jersey people being interested in chasing him and the opposing GC teams might not be so eager to let him go as well. So that's where multiple teams come into play, and that's where the GC fight could actually start hindering the green jersey fight for him as well. And there's also the added effect that Wout cannot do everything for 21 days. He needs a bit of a rest between there as well. So he can't go all out for every single day. And there's going to be days where he's going to have to focus fully on yellow, for example, when it comes to helping out his GC leaders. And there's going to be days where the green jersey will be his main goal. And one of the stages that I'm looking at where I'm curious what they will do at Jambo is the cobble stage, for example. Because on one end, you'd say Wout van Aert has the ability to win this stage, although Mess Pedersen is the likely candidate I would push forward for that stage. I don't know. I feel like if Wout van Aert is indeed chained to Roglic and Vingegaard, for example, there, to try and get them through the stage and so forth, he will have less of an opportunity to go for the stage and might not have the maximizing points that he needs on a stage like that, for example. But if he has the opportunity to go for a stage like that in some shape or form, whether it's after X amount of cobble sections of keeping the other safe, go for it himself, or just all out carte blanche for that stage, then he can maximize his points on that stage as well. What do you think they'll do on that stage?
I think they will have him and the others protect Roglic and Jonas and hope that a split happens. It's not too chaotic, and he gets to just at 5Ks after the last cobble, they say, okay, wow, you can go for the sprint. I think that's what will happen. I think his big problem is if Albertson or someone send it, and then he will have to let MVDP go up the road. That's the big risk. I still think he walks green. I just think it's so geared towards him. And MVDP and Matthews are kind of being sold by their team construction. Pedersen's the biggest threat. Can Pedersen climb that well for 3 weeks? I think Pedersen is the really, really big threat. He's motivated too.
Brian Kokar.
Listen, Lecoq, like, he's a good rider. Like, he...
Yeah, agree.
I mean, he's got his Volscheid back. He is. Volscheid's back. Benjamin Thomas. Like, it's not a bad little... I mean, Perez, Lefebvre, Geschke, Guillaume Martin going for top 10 GC. I don't know. I like Lecoq. I want to see him win Longwy. I really would. I'd love to see it. Maybe I'll even pick him. No Demar here. Christoph's here for Intermarché. With sort of Petit and some of the other guys. Quinton Herman's got left out. He doesn't know why. No one knows why. And yeah, Sagan's here. We haven't mentioned him. He's had COVID. He was looking good in one Swiss stage, but he's just not. He's not good enough consistently across 3 weeks. But hopefully he is there in the green jersey fight. He's won it like 7, 8 times. But that's all the sprinters teams. The main ones, at least. Jakobsen looks like the best bunch sprinter with the best train, but there's no real FDJ Giro level or Quickstep Tour de France level train as of last year. I'll just whip through I'll call them the MISC teams a little bit quickly. Quintana with RK as the headline, with Barguil and Ofstetter going for stages. Ofstetter could maybe top 5 Arenberg. Wouldn't be surprised. Israel bring Fulsang for GC, Clark, Froome, Goldstein, Uhl, Impey, Neylands, Woods. Uhl and Neylands actually in really, really good shape. Same with Impey. I would have left Woods out because he has to go for KOM or stages. Planche de Belleville from the break. Mike, please lose some time, because you will lose some time in the early stages with the TT. Just lose a lot. Go on the break, beat Pinot on Planche de Belleville. Happy days. But Fulsang should try and go for GC, even though he's been doing that for 10 years. B&B is Bonomo and Mozzato. EF, we don't know. We presume it's Uran, Guerrero, Court, Paulus, Ruch, Bettiol, Bissiger. Bissiger will be going for yellow on stage 1.
Wait.
He can genuinely do it.
Ruben Guerrero, I want to talk about him for a second. Climbed very strong on Move On to the Invalid Challenge. I feel like he definitely has the ability to win a mountain stage, or at least a medium mountain stage, or a transitioning stage in this race. But there's also the factor of that KOM jersey, for example. Do you believe that Ruben Guerrero could be in the race so many times? Has the kick towards KOM? No?
I haven't looked at the points allocation as closely as the points jersey, but I think he's too good. I think he might be going for GC in the first 2 weeks, like, until he drops out of it. I don't know. I think, like, you look at how he rode Dauphiné.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like he came 9th there. I don't know. I think he might be going for GC. But he looks class, and I agree. He can win a break mountain stage. Lutsenko leads Stana Kazakhstan with Moscon there, and Feline and Dombrowski. Not the best team. And I think that's everyone except FDJ and DSM. So FDJ have got the trident of Stora, Godu, and Pinot won the Tour de Suisse stage, so then he said we have to leave out Amirail, who's much better than Duchesne, because I think Duchesne is his friend. And so they brought in a rouleur to protect GC guys who will not do well on GC anyways.
But
so, yeah.
What do you think about Stefan Kung? He's been hunting the time trial win in the Tour de France for years, and this year he's gotten really damn strong outside of that time trial terrain. He's made a bit of a Campenard switch, but in my opinion, better, to where he was very strong on that Paris final stage. He was extremely strong during the entirety of the Tour de Suisse, ended up in the top 5 there, and GC Kung was a thing there. In Omloop, he was arguably the best rider outside of Wout van Aert, in my opinion, in that race. And then when we look at this Tour de France, I think there's actual options for him to win a stage outside of the time trials. Let's say Lausanne, for example. Yes, there's climbing up parts there, but we've seen a lot that there's moments in these transition stages where a rider rides away before the final hill, and that could be a Kung that plays into the group dynamic and so forth and rides away that way? Or do you fear that Groupama is going to be the team that puts Pinot in the break with Stefan Kung and lets Kung ride for Pinot the entire way through?
Imagine they chain Kung on stage 5 and they're like, Jumbo Visma, they got Wout for Roglic and Jonas, and they chain him for, like, come on. Stage 13 is sort of one you're thinking about, like, perfect for him. The Saint-Etienne stage from the break, like, he really should go for that. But yeah, I mean, Pinot should go for stages in KOM. He should just lose time, try and win on Super Planche, try and win one of the Alp stages from the break. Godu will try and go for GC. I feel bad for Amirail, but it is what it is. DSM bring Bardet, not for GC. Dainese and Degenkolb, Eckhoff for sprints. Hamilton, Lekson, Tushfeld, Vermarker. No Søren Kragh Andersen because he's leaving the team, even though he's Danish, and their highest point scorer this year. So that's a shame for him, and that's enough said about them. So that's all the teams. That's broadly all their goals. There's a lot of talented riders that won't be here. COVID has affected preparation for a lot of riders and sickness. And yeah, but we still at least have the headliners of, well, there's no Bernal, obviously, but we have the headliners of Roglic, Pogačar, Jonas, Thomas, Yates, and Martinez. Now on to the stage-by-stage analysis. We've already mentioned some of them or alluded to them briefly, but with all of our picks, I've already got my stage 1 ready from Copenhagen to Copenhagen 13K, CC Technical TT. I have to pick. It's Wout or Ganna, but I think I'm going with Wout. I think Wout wins the TT.
I'll be honest, I think that Wout and Ganna are the top 2 time trialists in the world. But I feel like being spicy today. Let's go for Mathieu van der Poel for this one.
Nah, no way.
I'm going for Mathieu
How does he
van der
beat
Poel.
Biss? I don't think he'll top 3. How's he going to beat Biss? Like, Bissiger's been, I think he's been sick. I don't see it. But he's so good technically. You're right. Remember on that TT, Benji, last year, stage 5, he like took 3 seconds back in the last corners. You're right. He's good handling. All right.
And next to that, we know that from the Giro that Vortex speed suit that Bike Exchange was using had a pretty good influence, most likely. And it turns out that Alpecin's now working with Vortex to also have that. And Van der Poel will be wearing that in the time trial. So a bit of a boost there. So I don't know. I see an opportunity for Van der Poel to get a good time trial out, but I don't have a clue what his form is at all at the moment. I probably think it's okay because he's going to the Tour de France. But yeah, I believe in a good result by Van der Poel. Whether that's winning or not, I don't know, but I'll pick him anyway for the victory. Copenhagen's technical and so forth. So I believe it, but I don't expect any proper GC gaps in that first time trial, although 13 kilometers can lead up to 50 seconds to the Buchmann time, but he's not in this race, of course. So I don't know, between like Pogačar, Vingegaard, and Roglic, I see a max of like 15 seconds.
Max, yeah, should be 6 seconds. I think Roglic is the best GC guy. No, Thomas, but I think Roglic, Thomas about same time, then 5 seconds to Pogačar. Also, his Basque Country prologue was a little bit weak last year, but yeah, I've gone Wout. Benji's gone MVP. that means Ghana will win. Stage 2, 50-pointer again. In terms of points, the Nyborg stage, I'm going with Fabio Jakobsen, Benji. I don't think there'll be huge splits and a group of 5 riding away on the bridge. I do think maybe someone will crash in the run-in, unfortunately, but I'm going Jakobsen in this effect, probably wind-affected stage 2.
Yeah, I think we'll likely have headwind on the bridge most likely, which means that there might be some chaos before the bridge instead, but it's not the most open terrain there then, so I don't think there's going to be too much echelons on the end of this stage. I hope there is, though. But when it comes to the final here, I believe that even if there's echelons or without echelons, I'll pick the same rider. It's a rider that came second in a lot of sprints in the Tour de France last year. I think I'm going to go for Jasper Philipsen on this one. I feel like he's a really fast man this year. And I feel like Quickstep might get it wrong with their sprint at least once this Tour de France, which means that it might be on this stage. So Philipsen is mine for this stage.
Alpecin definitely have more horsepower overall in their team. Stage 3 from Vielia to Sonderburg. Weiler, okay. Anyway, better be windy wherever this place is. It's another sprint stage with not too many big, sort of rolly 2% climbs. It is in Denmark after all. And I am going with Jakobsen again because I'll be right on one of the two.
I'm going for Jakobsen on this one as well. And hey, I might be wrong that Jakobsen wins the previous one and Philipsen wins this one, for example. But I believe they both will win a stage in this Tour de France, and they might be these two stages. I will say, I feel like this might be the more pure sprint stage compared to the previous one, personally. But hey, it's Denmark, so echelons are possible everywhere. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's it when it comes to the first 3 stages in Denmark. A start that has some chaos in there potentially, but nothing too crazy. But chaos can follow up in the next stage as well, which is stage 4 from Dunkerque to Calais, which also passes in Belgium for a tiny bit on the Kasselberg early on. So hey, we're a part of this Tour de France as well, people. But there's quite a few of these small hills, so I think that the KOM jersey will probably change shoulders on this 4th stage, but is there opportunity to have these last 2 hills used by a team, for example, to get something done?
Yes.
Or will the echelons play a role here? What's your take?
Yes, I think this is the sort of Pyrenees stage 1, tricky little stage. It's not as long a climbs. Oh, no, that's not true. I just see Pyrenees stage 1 all over here. And I agree with Benji. This reminds me of remember that stage where Schelling and Perez just fought the sprints for the KOM, and this is like that. Like there's so many Cat 4 climbs. There's like 7 of them. But as Benji said, it's 170 Ks. There's 2 little short climbs. There's a lot of climbs all day, and they can sap the legs, particularly of Jakobsen. But there's 2 short climbs, the last of which is 1K, 7.2%, 10 Ks from the finish. That's about the same distance that last climb in Paris-Nice was stage 1. If I was Jumbo-Visma, I would line this out full gas before those 2 for 2 reasons. First, it helps Wout. Second, it keeps Roglic safe, and they're safe. Third, it could fuck up someone like Yates, Martinez. Yates and Martinez, they got on the wrong side of Degenkolb on that Pyrenees climb. So I would apply pressure very hard there. And then I think Jasper Philipsen wins the stage. He gets over these little bergs quite well. It's between him and Pedersen, I think, with Wout going for top 5. I think Jakobsen will struggle. Ewan, I don't know his form, but I'm going with Philipsen here.
Ooh. I'm going to go for Wout van Aert on this stage, and I don't know why. I just see an opportunity there, and I don't know in what shape or form, but I'm going to go for Wout on this one. I don't think his sprint is Nah, I won't. Mess Pedersen. Mess Pedersen's going to win this stage.
Yeah, I think it's him or Philipsen.
Okay, Mess Pedersen. There we go. I feel like it reminds me of not necessarily that first Pyrenees stage, but the other ones where it's a reduced group necessarily, not necessarily the big pure sprinters all at once. And I feel like Pedersen a better finisher than Wout at the moment when it comes to a sprint. But that's it for that.
Well, actually, do you think Groenewegen and Jakobsen get over it?
I don't know. They should, like
they
it
really
depends on
should.
how hard it's pushed, but they should on paper. But I'm going to say
and Trek and Jumbo have to send it, right? For that reason.
Yeah. Or certainly Trek needs to. They did it for bloody Stuyven in the Dauphiné. So if they don't do it for Pedersen in this race, then there's something wrong with the plans in their squad personally. But another opportunity for Pedersen the day after, in my opinion, Lille Metropole, Toirenberg, Port-du-Hainaut. There's a total of 11 cobble sectors in the second half of this race, of which I'd say the last 5 will probably be the most decisive ones. But is this Roubaix-level cobbles? No. There are cobbles that are featured in Roubaix, certainly like Era-Wadigny and Tillois sectors, which is the 7th and the 9th sector on the day. But I feel like this might be more a race of trying not to crash and trying not to be hindered versus trying to attack. Do you see, for example, Pogacar and Roglic use this stage as an opportunity to attack each other?
Hey, UAE are just thinking survival here. Like, I think there's a downhill cobbled sector that they're going to do at like 1,000,000 kilometers an hour, which is terrifying. And UAE already complained about it. I don't think UAE are going to. I think they're in survival mode here because, like, you can't win the Tour. They back his climbing and 3-week consistency, but you can lose it here or have a mechanical. They've had equipment issues all year, UAE, and yeah, I think they'll be just trying to survive. Jumbo should send it if they send it and one of their guys, if he dies, he dies. But if Pogacar goes with him, what a great result. Like, that's how I would approach it, to be honest. They got the team for, like, you don't bring that team and not send Calais, Arenberg stage. Like, otherwise, what's the point? You got to use your biggest advantage compared to UAE when you have that advantage. Same with INEOS. If there's any, we haven't mentioned yet, if there's any crosswind, we don't know exactly which stage, the weather can change. If there's crosswind in that Denmark stage, in Calais, or on the cobbles here, they're going to send it. Like, they have to. They always do. INEOS, every time there's a sniff of wind, it's their biggest advantage. They got Rowe, Van Baal, no Kwiatkowski, but they got Thomas. Like, they have to. And so expect to see that. That being said, as Benji said, it's not Paris-Roubaix level. It's a 150K stage. I think, is it easy enough that Philipsen can be in a reduced group here? Like, Pedersen's probably the favorite for the stage, but how does, Van der Poel has to go for it, and he has to go for yellow at some point. So, how do Alpecin balance those two?
I feel like Van der Poel is the attacking rider, and Philipsen's the one that sits on and tries to follow the riders that try and counter him on a stage like this. And I think it will be pretty hard to ride away, but I think Degenkolb, Van Avermaet, and I think Stuyven did it in that. Were it those three? I don't even know if it was those three in that previous cobble stage in 2018, I think. But when it comes to this stage, I also wonder who's going to be in yellow at the end of the stage. Like you say, is Mathieu Van der Poel going to go for yellow? And I'm leaning towards the fact that I think Pedersen might be in green after the stage, but when it comes to the yellow jersey, I think it might be Wout.
Yeah, it's between him, Pedersen, maybe even Ganna, to be honest, if the others don't take any bonus seconds along the way. But if Van der Poel gets a gap, you only need 10 seconds plus bonus if he wins the stage. We need to give up picks. I'm going with Mads Pedersen.
Damn it. I was also going to do so. I'm also going to go for Pedersen. Doesn't matter if we both have the same one. So I'll do that anyway. And we go back to Belgium because we like Belgium. The day after, Bash to Longwy. This is a stage on which I feel like there's some intrigue there because the final 15 kilometers is where it gets interesting. 4 consecutive climbs, the first of which is the Montigny-sur-Crier climb, 1.6k at 4.1%. Then we go towards the next one, which is 2.3 kilometers at 4.3%. On to the next one, which is 800 meters at 10.8%. And then the final climb is the Côte des Religieuses, 1.6k at 6%. How hard is that? Is that too difficult for a punchy sprinter like Okar? I think it is.
I think so. 10% for a K is 11% for 800 meters, not even the last climb. And they're going to be, even if you make it over, these guys are going to be sliding back, and then there's the descent. There's no flat to make up position. I think if this is pinned, this is Van der Poel, Wout van Aert, Baggioli, even Roglic and Pogacar. Honestly, this is where it gets really tricky for Jumbo-Visma because Roglic can win this stage or at least compete for bonus seconds. But they got Wout here, who on paper should be the fastest finisher for it. And I want to go back before that even starts for the sort of long flat before. who's controlling this stage, Benji? Like, are Jumbo going to invest Nathan van Hooijdonk or someone to pace on this stage, controlling the break? Will I think Bike Exchange have to. Otherwise, why are you bringing Matthews at all if you're not going to give him a chance on this stage? Will EF for Court? Will Quickstep for Baggioli? Do you expect all those teams to pace? Will Alpecin for Van der Poel? I think they all should.
I think Alpecin certainly will try. Quickstep, I don't believe it without Alaphilippe. I don't think they will for Baggioli on this stage, personally. I'd be shocked if they actually do so. But if they do so, well, fine for me. To be honest, I'd rather see the peloton sprint up these last two climbs than have a breakaway win it. But when it comes to the other teams, like when it comes to Jumbo, they've got those two riders, Van Aert and Roglic, who can both get something out of the stage. This being a 50-point stage is really valuable for them when it comes to the green jersey. But will they use the opportunity? I'll be honest, I just don't know. I don't know what to expect from that camp in this final. And I think that usually, on paper, a GC team would not do this, would not control a stage like this.
Yeah.
But this is a difficult situation.
If no one helps them, they won't do it all day. They'll need help from Alpecin and others. I think Wout wins the stage, and I think Pogacar's a real chance as well, depending on his positioning. But it's also an opportunity to put pressure on him and Ineos with that strong team. So I think Wout wins this stage and goes into yellow.
Okay, I've got a different name for you. Benoit Cosnefroy.
Yeah, well, he's been a bit out. He should. Like, this is perfect for him. Are they bringing Madouas? Is Madouas on FDJ? I mean, he's pretty punchy as well. But yeah. I think, watch out. It'll be Van der Poel and Wout will be the favourites for this two stage. Yeah. And I think Beck should go for Matthews. Stage 7, Wout might have the jersey, but I think it'll probably be given away by whoever has it, especially, well, no, it's not true if it's Pedersen. Stage 7, 176 Ks from Tomblaine to Super Planche de Belfi. Pretty easy stage beforehand. And then a 7K, 8.5% climb with steep sort of gravel finish. That's why it's called La Super Planche. I think this is in the Alsace region. I think this is breakaway. I don't see why any GC team would invest to try and get the jersey at this point and for the minimal time gaps. It's a 20-minute climb. You can still take 20, 30 seconds, don't get me wrong, but I don't see it. I'm going with... it's going to be between Pinot, if he's smart enough to lose time, Guerrero, Bardet should lose time, Baggioli, Bouchard. I'm going with Thibaut. No, it's not sure. I'm going with Dylan Teuns.
I'm going to go with... what is Cristiano Rodriguez going to do in this race? Is he going to go for GC or is he going to go for a stage? I'd like to see that guy win a stage, but I fear for it. I think Pinot is a big shout for a Planche de Belfi. I think Bardet is a good shout for a mountain stage in general in this race, but it really depends on who's going to actually lose time, like you mentioned, and that's where I see the issues there, and I might be leaning towards...
I'm changing my pick.
Ciccone? Simmons? One of those two?
Ciccone is a good call. Like, they got to lose time. Ciccone is quality climber, but I'm changing my pick to Leonard Kemner. I can't go past the breakaway master on the first uphill finish. I'm going with Kemner for this. And I should have mentioned we disrespected Dylan Teuns' Flesh winner. He should be in the mix on the stage before as well. They got Moritz Frederick. Pardon?
On Planche de Belfi before?
Yes, I think so. But I meant for the long wee stage. Okay. I think they'll be in the mix too. Bahrain,
not fast enough.
You reckon? I know that, but they will. I think they will be part of the race with the team they brought. Right, yeah. Moritz, they will be part of the race.
Congrats, hot take. They'll be part of the race.
I think the breakaway winner will take yellow on stage 7. I think, and then stage 8 is this first. Should be. Well, I say nailed on breakaway stage, but if you're Bike Exchange, Benji, you got to Matthews has to go on the break, right? You can't chase all day like in the Vuelta. This is like the Vuelta when they're caught when the break, won 3 stages. Matthews, they just chased, and it was it didn't really work out for them. But I think MVDP wins this from the break. 5K, 5% finish. There's an intermediate sprint after a climb, 185 Ks. I think he wins from the break.
I think on this stage we'll have a breakaway that includes the likes of Van der Poel, like you say, Matthews, perhaps with riders like Jules Jensen and so forth to be an engine in that breakaway. If Jules Jensen is in this race, I think he is. And then Wout van Aert, I think, should also be in that breakaway to get an intermediate sprint. Will he stay in the breakaway afterwards? I think with this stage he should. Will the other teams like a Pogacar squad panic again?
Nah, they
That's
shouldn't.
difficult. They shouldn't. Like after last year, they should have learned their lesson. But I think Stefan Kung will be in this breakaway. I believe that a finish in Switzerland, in Lausanne, Stefan Kung will benefit from the fact that Van der Poel, Van Aert, and Matthews will be looking at each other, trying to close each other down. Matthews will not be the greatest person to be with in that chasing group as well. Kung will ride away before that final hill, and we'll slice them open, and we'll take a victory in the Tour de France stage.
Baggioli and Honoré, this is why they were brought. They need to be in the breakaway as well on this stage, and they'll be contenders. Did I go for MVDP? Yeah, I did, I think. I picked them for so many stages. Stage 9, and so that's break. And then stage 9, I think this is break as well, Benji. Like 193 Ks, there's sort of soft climbs before. The first one, they're like 13K, 4%, 8K, 7.5%, descent, 20K valley, and then a 12K 7% climb, which is harder than it looks. But then it's the descent off Morgin, descent, and then a little uphill 4K 4% finish. So, like, you're going to have to invest a lot. I think this is break, and I'm going with Di Bopino.
Okay, I'm going to go for Ruben Guerrero on this one. Yes,
that's nice.
I do fear that he's going to go for GC. Like, this is also Lutsenko's stage, but he's going to go for GC. So.
Yeah, no, this is no. I think this is Lutsenko.
Do you believe in Lutsenko when it comes to non-GC?
I don't really believe much in a Astana team at the moment, but I think these are the right names.
Podium Tour de France. He was going to podium the Tour de France, he said. Remember?
Yeah, he could. He still could. It just needs everyone to crash out on stage 5. And Kobler, Gianni Moscon to help him. I think these are all the right names. Ciccone, Kamna, Guerrero, Bettiol, depending on his condition, Bardet, please lose time, Thibaut Pinot, Mike Woods. These are all the right names.
We forgot for the Lausanne stage, Victor Lafay.
Oh, come on, Benji. It's a serious race.
Wow.
No, he's a decent rider, but if he's uphill 5K 5% against MVDP and Matthews and wow, it's a little bit different. Maybe they won't be in the break, but yeah, I'm going again with Kamna, and I'm hoping to be correct on one of them. Do you think? Yeah, I think I'm going with Kamna again.
We talking McGaff stage?
No, I'm talking the stage 9.
Oh, Guerrero's still in.
Still with Guerrero? Okay. That's the first rest day. Apart from the cobble stages, the mountains should not create big gaps before the rest day, and neither should the second or the first stage after that rest day. Stage 10 to Megev. This is the Lutsenko special from the break. 150 Ks, soft climb, 20 Ks, 4% after a relatively sort of rolly stage. I see no point in any GC team pacing, and I see break again. And I'm going with, I want to go Wout from the break.
Okay.
But I don't think he'll be led into it. Kung could win from the break. I can't pick Kamina again. That's illegal.
Andreas Kroon.
Oh, no, I don't see it.
Tour de Suisse last year, got slapped by Costa in the sprint, but Costa got DQ'd after a pretty hard mountain stage, but low gradients. Got close in GC in this Tour de Suisse for the first part of it. I believe in Andreas Kroon for this stage.
I'm going with Carlos Verona. Please let him in the break. Carlos Verona can be... He's perfect.
He's chained, mate.
He's not. Come on, free him. Look at his Ordino. He didn't. He set the quickest time on Ordino this year so
Locked
far.
Up.
Come on, please let him in the break. he'll win this. It's 4 or 5%. He's magic. Otherwise, like, look at Tratnik, Turns, Morich types. They'll be in the break. They'll be nasty. That's all been a lot of break stuff, a lot of cobbling stuff. Now we get to the big boys. Stage 11, 152 Ks, Diskusten stage. We have the Telegraph Galibier combo, 12 Ks, 7%, 5-minute descent, 17.5 Ks, 7% to 2,630 meters. The Henri de Grange, Souvenir Henri de Grange. The problem is, from the top of Galibier to the base of Grenon is a 33-kilometer descent / falls flat. And then there's Grenon, 11.5 Ks, 9.1%, 9.1% average to 2,400 meters. I think Jonas Vingegaard wins this stage. But the problem is, Benji, that damn valley. Like, what can you do? No one can attack on Galibier without a satellite rider. It's suicide.
Exactly, that's true. And there's also not the benefit that the intermediate sprint is, for example, at the top of a hill or something. So I feel like if Wout, for example, tries to go in the breakaway for the intermediate sprint, then he's in that breakaway, takes that intermediate sprint, then will they just let him go? The other teams? Because he could play the role as a satellite rider, for example. Will they care?
If you were
that
UAE,
happened?
would you burn?
Yeah.
I mean, what else are
Stekelengen.
Bjerg and Stekelengen going to do after Telegraph anyway? You may as well chase.
That's true, but are you going to inflict some low-key damage on George Bennett by pacing hard in the peloton? Will that hurt him?
I mean, I think they'd have to catch him before Lasset de Montvernier. 3.5 Ks, 8% at 50 Ks. Like, there's going to be a big fight, I think, in that flat highway. So it's tricky. I think INEOS need to try and get Dylan van Baal in the breakaway. He's beautiful to high altitude as well. As we saw on the Galibier in 2018, maybe. They need him in the valley, and I expect INEOS to do the same. I think INEOS and Jumbo need to send Galibier, Martinez to high altitude. Just you have to give him a chance. Like, this is why you bring him. This is why you're trying to, how you can try and win the race. One of the avenues, it might not work. 80% chance it doesn't work. And Pogacar's fine, but Van Baal on the break and send it for Martinez if they can, and see if he can attack with Jonas and put Pogacar under pressure. That's what I would do if I was them. But I'm going with Jonas to win the stage.
Perhaps it's a bit of hopium from my end that I want to see a battle for GC here, but I'm going to go for Roglic. I think when I see opportunities for Jumbo here, I see it in trying to want to attack Pogacar on stages. And I feel like Roglic will always be the last one to do that. Does that make sense? I feel like despite Vingegaard being strong in the Dauphiné,
he always moves first.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why perhaps the first move might not happen. And then perhaps Roglic will have that final kick towards the end and be able to make something happen. I'll go for Primož on this one.
It's going to be, these are the two stages to watch. Hopefully it kicks off. The depressing thing will be if a move like that happens and Carlos Verona paces back Martinez and Vingegaard or Roglic with Pogacar in the wheel, I will go fucking crazy. That would be the most depressing. We laugh, but these things do happen in the Tour de France. So even if, and it might even be right, but yeah, please. The next day, stage 12, another brutal day, 165 Ks. It's a repeat of the 2008 stage where Sastre destroyed Kurl and Evans, and Schleck let him go on Alpe d'Huez. It's virtually an identical stage where CSC ripped it up. Galibier, other side, 23 Ks, 5% out the gate. This is big OTL risk for the pure sprinters, with disc at a neutral, although the intermediate sprint is before the climb starts. Descent, step descent, then Col de la Croix de Fer, 29 Ks, 5.2%, but it's, it's actually in stages. It's in stages, like the last 6 Ks are 8.3% to 2,000 meters. Step descent again, where I think in the break, one guy got dropped. Like, Martinez could struggle on these descents. That goes for yesterday, that goes for stage 12. Martinez will struggle on the descents, then another valley of 15 Ks, then Alpe d'Huez 14 Ks, 8%. It's hard. It needs no introduction. I'm going with Primož on this day.
I'm going to switch it around. I'm going to go for Jonas on this day. Why am I not picking Pogacar for these stages? it's because I want the battle in this Tour de France. I want to have it a close battle, and I see like these two stages has the opportunity for Jumbo to damage a Pogacar. Is that the same feeling that you have? Because like the weaknesses we saw of Pogacar in the past, Van 2, rather large climbing performance, a long climbing performance. We've seen him weaker in the hot conditions and so forth. I feel like that's more likely to happen on these two stages than in the Pyrenees. Make sense?
The Tour de France was won last year with 20-minute to 25-minute efforts. Similar in 2020. Apart from Col de la Loze, apart from Ventoux, on Loze he was dropped by Roglic and Kuss then obviously was a domestique. On Ventoux he was dropped by Jonas, who put 40 seconds into him in 4 minutes. In 4 minutes. So he attacked for 2 minutes, and in 4 minutes he put 40 seconds into Pogacar on the end of Ventoux. So yes, it's also a bit of hope that we're going to have a big battle, but these climbs, this is different. These are 40 minutes, Alpe d'Huez and Grenelle, maybe longer. Obviously, Galibier, we're talking an hour or longer from the base of Telegraph. So these are long, long climbs, and I do think that suits Roglic and Jonas a little bit more. When we get to the Pyrenees, that is when I'm going to be picking Pog back to back. Spoiler alert. But these ones, I think this is where Jumbo-Visma, will be trying to apply pressure. Do you think? I'm not convinced Micah can help that much, Benji. Like Micah was, Kwiatkowski dropped him on Ventoux last year. Not pacing that hard before Jonas attacked. Kwiatkowski dropped him. I'm not. He's his best mountain domestique, but yeah, they're going to have to be on. I'm not sure how much. Like if Jonas attacks and you're Pog, do you trust? Like say it's a group 6 or 7. Do you trust Micah to pace back Jonas on Grenelle or Alpe d'Huez, or do you have to close it yourself?
I think he's going to have to end up closing it himself, but Micah can keep the gap relatively stable for a tiny bit before Pogacar makes that move. So it extends the time before Pogacar has to make his final move. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like classic INEOS SkyTrain. You use the domestiques for as long as you have sitting in the draft. And by the way, draft still matters at 8 and 9%. I know people don't believe it, but it still actually matters. And when we're talking 1 or 2%, 1 and 2% really matters. So yes, maybe he can do that. Soler, I just don't see as useful in these stages. McNulty's hit and miss. So it's an opportunity for Ineos and Jumbo, I think, to try on those stages. Particularly, Thomas is good on the longer climbs too. Thomas on the 5% 30Ks loves it to altitude. I think he's fine. I think they're going to have to repeat stage 19, the teen stage last year, where Thomas attacked and then Bernal countered. This year, Martinez is Bernal. I think that's how Ineos should play it. Stage 13, though, this will be a break from the action. I think this looks like a nailed-on breakaway stage, 193 Ks. I'm going with Magnus Cort.
Damn it. That was exactly the person I was going with as well. Yeah. I'm going to go for someone else then. And the rider I'm going for is... Fuck, why did you have to pick the rider I was going with? Like, there's so many riders on the start list, and you select every single time the rider I'm going with. That's the reason that you always go for... Well, does that make me a genius as well? Because I had the same riders in my head.
I didn't mean to compliment
you. I'm going to go for Taco.
Taco. I mean, I like Daryl Impey too. Krone's pretty fast. It is the perfect court stage. I'm looking through. Again, Van der Poel, Wout van Aert, like this 50-point stage. Van Aert, if he wants Green, has to try and get in the break. I'm just not... I think Green's going to hurt him for this stage. Like, I think he's going to have to ride for the points, and he gets attacked, and he'll come fourth in a stage like this. Lovely big points bundle, but he won't end up actually winning the stage. So, I'm going to keep it with Magnus Cort. Breakaway stage. Stage 14 to Mendy, 192 Ks. I think this is a break too, Benji. Like, because here's the difficulty. 3K, 10.5% finish with a short descent afterwards. Roglic, I think, is better than Pog on this by about 1%. Is it worth pacing all day for Roglic to maybe take 5-7 seconds and for Jonas to maybe be dropped? Because Pog, I think, is better than him on this. I don't think it is. I think they play defensive. I think for Pog, why would you pace either? Same with INEOS too. Vlasov it's perfect for. I love Vlasov on this, as he's great on these 10-minute steep efforts. But I think it's break.
I think it's breakaway as well. I think the likes of I'm kind of thinking about a Quinn Simmons for a stage like this.
Can Wellens win a real race?
real. It's not February anymore, so difficult. Nah, I don't see it for this one. I think Quinn Simmons is my pick for this one. I think Simmons has shown that he's really punchy, has shown that he's good at taking KOM points, but he's gonna take something decent here. And we've been overrating him in World Tour races, I feel like, when he comes to stage wins quite a few times, because I swear we picked him for like half the Vuelta stage last year as well. Am I overrating him for this stage?
I think so. Like, I think if someone like Lafay gets in there, or Turns, or Guerrero, or Barguil, I'm going with Wawa. I'm going with Warren Barguil to win this stage. That's why he's been brought to the race. I think, again, we'll see Moritz, Sanchez, Turns in the break. I think Bahrain have to. Lafay should try. I wish Godu was not going for GC, because I think he would clean them all on this finish. Quinton Hermans isn't here for Intermarché, so I don't know what they're doing. 3K, 10.5%. Like,
Ajoli?
I don't know. Like,
they should try.
It's a puncher. Wawa came 9th in Flesh, and Viermoj came 10th. I think it's going to be a battle between the French Pro Contis. I'm going with Wawa.
Okay. You're allowed to do so. I will accept that. That from you. Stage 16. Then this is also nailed on. Actually, I've got no clue who I picked. Who did I pick again? I picked someone. No worries. I picked someone. I think I picked Simmons or something.
Simmons, you picked Simmons.
But when it comes to stage 15, then Rodé to Carcassonne also looks like a nailed on breakaway stage. It was like half of the stage in the second week, to be honest. Even though that's the third week already, because we're at day 15. Basically, it looks undulating for the entirety of the first 66% of this stage. Then we start the Côte de Camas, which is 5.5k at 3.9%. Not a steep climb, to be honest. Is it too shallow where it could actually be a low-key sprint opportunity? Or
don't you think
is
Trek
the
should
ups
pace
and
this
downs
stage
too much? For Pedersen, I see an opportunity.
Like, the climbs, the last ones at 2.5k are at 4%, 25k's from the finish. Absolutely no problem for him. I think you got to go for Pedersen here. Like,
I think there's a situation where Stuyven's in the breakaway, and that's why they won't pay.
No, sure.
Pace for Pedersen. They've done it before in the wave.
I even think Philipsen can get around this. Like,
I think so too.
These are shallow. And there's and the sprinters have had nothing, Benji, for 10 stages. Nothing. Like, I'm going to go with Wout van Aert. And I think it's going to be a sprint between him, Pedersen, and Philipsen.
I'm going to go with... I'm going to follow you on that. I'm going to go for Jasper Philipsen on this one.
Yeah, I
believe that he can survive.
If there were 2 pure sprint stages before, remember the second week last year, it was like calf. Even I got a bit sick of it. Then I would say break, but it isn't. This is like the only opportunity for a sprinter in the second week. And that's the last day before the second rest day. Stage 16 from Carcassonne to Foix. This is as close as it gets to me, Benji. 2 hours drive in Foix at the base of the Pyrenees. They don't come to Andorra this year, for shame. This looks like the Mark Hirschi 2020 stage. Like, Mark Hirschi would have won this easily, but Mark Hirschi isn't here, and Mark Hirschi 2020 probably doesn't exist anymore. So 178Ks, 11.5Ks, 7% descent, 9.5Ks, 7.6%. Bora-Hansgrohe winning this stage with one of Conrad, Schachmann, Großschartner, or Kamner.
I think that's a very big opportunity there indeed. I think Conrad was indeed on a similar stage like this. I think that... I don't like how this stage looks.
What do you mean?
It looks so boring.
It's not GC. Like, no way this is GC, right?
No way. Like, I think the risk to reward ratio on a stage like this is not there, because if you attack on Mur de Piguerre, you've got the descent you need to go in fast. You got to bring that to the finish line. it's a proper 28 kilometers from the top of that final Mur de Péguerre to that finish line. Yes, Péguerre is steep, but I'm going to go with, I think Pinot's going to attack away on Mur de Péguerre and win this stage.
I mean, but there's a descent, Benji. Like, that's
Yeah.
the problem. I mean, this isn't that much less difficult than the Lorraine stage, 154 Ks that Pogacar won, where he, Bernal, Landa, Roglic went solo and caught Hirschi. There they had the Col de Marie Blanc, which is harder than the last climb. Well, it's not that much harder. It was shorter. Like, we could. The difference there was they had those GC bonus seconds at the top that they sprinted for. And so bring them back. And there's even 3Ks, 11.5% in this. Like, we could see GC. It's whether Jumbo want to go for it, I think. Because if you don't have teammates for that descent, it's going to be very, very difficult to keep it up. But yeah, I'm going with Conrad for this stage. Did you go for Conrad as well?
I did not go for Conrad. I did go for Pinot on it.
Oh, you went for Thibaut Pinot. I think he will perish on the descent. Sorry. Stage 17.
Perish.
Well, hopefully he doesn't actually perish. But yeah, I think he'll get caught in the descent. Here we enter the zone de Pogacar. 130.5 Ks. It is back-to-back 7% 20-minute climbs all day. Col d'Aspin, 12 Ks, 6.5 descent. Then I can't pronounce it, 8.5 Ks, 5% descent, short valley. Then another one I can't pronounce, as a 8.5 Ks, 7.7% descent, short valley. Then Périgueux, 8.17%. I think this is his zone, Benji. But is it too soft? Like, do you expect to see big gaps on 20 minutes, 7%?
I think that it might indeed be relatively soft, honestly. The thing with this stage is that it also depends what the situation in GC is going into this, because let's say the situation is how we say it is so far, then Pogacar is likely not in yellow. If UAE is not controlling this stage, what team is Jumbo going to control the stage if Roglic is in yellow or Vingegaard is in yellow?
I think if Jumbo are in yellow, then they can be chill. They just make sure that no one that's a GC threat gets in the break. And then they say, hey, UAE, you want to win the race? Try and do something. And you got to invest a lot on these climbs. As I said, drafting matters a lot on them. I still think Pog wins the stage from a sprint.
Okay. I think the stage might indeed fit Pogacar the most. And I'm also going to go for Pogacar on this one. It's shorter climbs and so forth. But I think the differences might not be as big as people might anticipate on a stage like this with multiple mountains per se.
It could be 10 deep.
Because like you say.
Orsia Millet. Like, it could be Orsia Millet type. You don't reckon? Oh, Périgueux steep at the end. Okay, I apologize. I think
there's like a very steep, small part at the end of Périgueux, like you mentioned. A bit of like, did Bardet win on Périgueux?
I can't remember.
I swear Bardet sprinted up the steep sections of Périgueux at some point and won a stage there. Anyway.
Is it too late for someone to sign Dan Martin? Dan Martin would win this from the break. Like, he came 5th on Ardennes last year. Sign him. Sorry, Benji. Stage 18.
He might not be in the shape anymore. I have no clue if he kept it up or not. Okay. Still good. Fine. Yeah, I'm going to go with Pogacar as well. I think this stage fits him, but I don't think he will necessarily gain much time on anyone on this stage. So. And therefore, is the steep section at the finish line not benefiting Roglic more?
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. Like, I'm going
to Roglic.
Yeah, I think if it's soft, then it does suit Roglic, but I think he might lead him out, and Pogacar's been tactically better in sprints. Stage 18, 144 Ks, the last mountain test. They do the Col d'Aubisque, 17 Ks, 7%, again, a long climb. Descent, Spandel, 10 Ks, 8.3. That is hard. 30-minute climb. Descent, Outercam, 13.5, 8%, 35-minute plus climb. I'm going with Primož Roglic winning this stage. And maybe a Froome-Wiggins moment. This is the tricky one, yeah. Let's run the scenario here, Benji. I know it's a long pod, but I'm enjoying talking through different scenarios, and hopefully they eventuate. Jonas has taken yellow in the Alps. He's defended it. Pogacar's won the stage yesterday, taken 10 back, and or even Primoz is in yellow, but it's 30 seconds ahead of Pogacar. Do you feel comfortable with Jonas or Roglic nursing a 30-second lead? Say both of them are ahead of him going into the final TT. Or do you send Hautacam again?
Personally, I would never feel comfortable, but I'd feel more comfortable than being behind. But I don't think Jumbo will feel comfortable. I think they're completely traumatized still when it comes to the 2020 Tour de France, and they'll want 5 fucking minutes on Pogacar when it comes to the time trial.
I
agree.
I agree with that philosophy. Bro, you don't know what he can do in that final TT.
But I don't know, when it comes to Hautacam, I think I'm going for Tadej Pogacar for this stage. I feel like this is a climb where the differences can be made, Hautacam. We saw it last with Vincenzo Nibali in 2014, where he absolutely obliterated everybody because he had no competition. He wasn't gifted anything.
He's against a French insurance salesman.
John Gadret La Rouge.
Nah, but you got to be in it to win it. And hopefully, God forbid history repeats itself and we have, the big GC guys crashing out. But yeah, I'm going with Roglic. I think they're not going to be, I think they're going to want a 1-2 Pogacar, even if, they have a slender lead. I think that's probably right. Don't finish stage 20 thinking, what else could we have done? And I think you go again here with the 1-2. And it suits Roglic, 40 minutes.
But we're talking through scenarios where Vingegaard and Roglic are both in GC at this point. And the question is, do I trust Jonas on the cobble stage, for example? And I think I trust him a lot less than
way
I
less,
do Primoz. So Jonas might be on time in that first week. Let's say he's on 2 minutes.
Doesn't matter.
Does not matter?
No.
Okay.
Sastre was on Sastre was on time, wasn't he? Oh, no, that's not true. Maybe he's just ahead. I think if Jonas is on 2 minutes, 3 minutes, it still doesn't matter. If Roglic is level with Pogacar on Hautacam, Jonas attacks, Micah can't do anything, Pogacar still has to pace. It's still, and Roglic sits in the wheel. It still is an advantage to Roglic, even if he's on 3 minutes. Now, he doesn't have to pace as hard. He only has to pace at his threshold. It's still a minor advantage. That's why I'm going for Roglic for the stage.
I don't know, because that might end up chaining Roglic to a point. What if, for example, Jonas does attack on Hautacam and is 30 seconds ahead, for example, and gains 35 seconds, 40 seconds on a group where Pogacar is pacing with Roglic in the wheel? That might become a scenario where Jonas takes back 1.5 minutes, gets closer to Pogacar in GC, but Primoz can't gain anything because he's basically forced to sit on.
Oh no, he should re-attack.
Is ahead. He should also re-attack once the gap is significant enough to make sure it happens. Oh, okay. That makes sense, because otherwise you're chaining yourself and making sure that Roglic is also stuck,
If anyone wants to go and look, it's 144p, not even 250p. You can barely make them out. The Alpe d'Huez stage 2008. Schleck, after Sastre gets to 30-40 seconds, Schleck re-attacks. And it also disrupts the momentum of the group. I think if Roglic is feeling good, he should re-attack him, maybe even bridge across to Jonas. It depends on all the gaps. And I mean, hopefully this all pans out. Hopefully it's INEOS and Martinez, and they can play the same sort of thing with Yates, Thomas, and Martinez can be aggressive. I hope so, because Pogacar, we think, might be a little bit isolated. But I went with Roglic. Benji went with Pog for the record, I think. Stage 19, this is the by law breakaway stage, although we've had barely any sprint stages. I don't even know. It's like an even Garcia Cortina special, isn't it?
No. Movistar is going to pull themselves outside of the breakaway.
Yeah, this was a break last year. They got 4 guys in a breakaway and it had 3 minutes, and the director's like, it will be caught. And they called it back. It was the most insane thing I've ever seen. I tried to find footage of it, but it wasn't in my highlights pack. But damn, it was bad. Wout's got to get, this is a 50-pointer. Wout's got to be in the mix in the break too, but I think he'll be attacked. I'm going with a real weird one. I'm going with Hugo Hofstadter.
If we go weird people, then I might as well say Kamil Gradek on Bahrain.
No, mate. He's Max Watts. He can sit at 350 all day, but no more. Kamil Gradek. He's making the tour squad. Unbelievable. Is that your actual pick?
Peter Sagan's going to go in the breakaway after a dry Tour de France and win it.
Please God, that's the only way to save this video. Otherwise, look out for Benjamin Thomas or Max Volscheid. It's that sort of day. Maybe one to have a little rest. Stage 20, final TT, 40.5Ks long. Healy, it's between, for me, like, I know we already mentioned the scars of Planche de Belfi TT, but you look at the Olympics TT, Roglic, obscene, like just ridiculous. This is also over 40 minutes, 45 minutes plus. Just Healy, he really should be taking time on Pogacar on this TT. The question is, this isn't a one-day race. This is at the back end of 3 weeks, and Pogacar didn't try in the final TT last year. I think Wout will win the stage. But yeah, where do you see the GC guys ranking?
Will Roglic try a new laser helmet during this stage? Is also a thing that
it's uncursed
could influence. Now. It's uncursed now? Okay. Since when?
Since he wore it in one of the TTs in 2021 and won the stage. Uncursed.
Okay. It's uncursed. Perfect. But when it comes to this parcours, there's a difference with Planche de Belfi, because Roglic was not capitulating on the flat part before Planche yet. It was on the climb itself that he was capitulating the damage, right?
He lost like 30, 40 on the flat, I think, and it wasn't that flat. Like, I agree with you, though. I agree that, like, the cracking was exacerbated by a 20-minute proper climb, for which we don't have. Here we have 1,500 meter 5% climbs, 1,800 meters 6% climbs. I agree, but Pogacar on rolling terrain in the Tour is also elite. I still think it should be. I think Thomas will actually be the best of the GC guys on this TT.
If he's still on his bike by then. But when it comes to Pogacar versus Roglic, the parcours shouts Roglic to me. But it being in the final week of a Grand Tour, I feel like Pogacar's recovery in the Grand Tours is insane. And I think Tadej Pogacar is going to win this in the GC fight with Wout van Aert taking the stage. Do you think that it's too hard for Stefan Kung to fight for? Because his climbing's on point these days.
It's just he's always nearly there. I think he'll be third.
Second there.
Yeah, second or third. I think Wout should win the stage. Like he won the stage 21 last year from memory. The final stage 21, 50-pointer, Champs-Élysées procession, finishes about 8 p.m. It's also, by the way, the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift kicks off before this stage, so make sure you watch that. Watch the Femme before the men's stage 21. Bunch sprint. Is Jakobsen and Ewan, are they still here? We haven't mentioned Caleb Ewan once. Are they still here?
Absolutely no clue they're still here at this point. I think Caleb Ewan's climbing at Giro was appalling at certain points, so I think he's OTL by this point. Is the Tour de France OTL difficult to manage?
Yeah, it's harder than the Vuelta. Yeah, it's tougher. And the Giro.
Harder than the Giro, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. I think Ewan's out. Jakobsen might survive, but only because of Tim de Klerk.
True, yeah. I'm going to go with Mads Pedersen. He came second to Bennett in 2020 Champs-Élysées sprint. If my memory serves me correctly, I'm going with Pedersen on this, but it's not enough to win the green jersey. So we'll have someone wrap up all those predictions into a spreadsheet so that we're all correctly.
Haven't named.
Oh, you didn't name yours. Sorry.
Wout van Aert wins in the green jersey.
Back-to-back Champs-Élysées stage wins, huh? Okay.
Yeah, okay. In the green jersey this time around.
Right. Not the yellow jersey. Sports is confused by
the KOM jersey.
KOM. Well, now let's get into that. That's all the stages ad nauseum. Let's talk about who will win the green jersey. We've discussed a lot. I think Wout walks the green jersey, Benji.
I think so as well. Wout walks the green jersey. I think even with the yellow jersey battle being a thing, I think Wout van Aert should be able to take it. And next to that, the yellow jersey battle with Jumbo is more likely to fuck up than the green jersey battle. So if the yellow jersey battle fucks up, then he can focus completely on the green jersey battle. And he's got that clean then.
If you don't get in the break one day, you have a terrible day. You just miss out on that day's points. You have a bad GC day, you're done. Yeah. So as you said, it's easier to manage. In terms of KOM, I'm going with, I don't think Bouchard's going for it. Barguil, I'm not sure if he's going for it. Maxime Bouet.
There's 3 names I've got.
I'm going with Thibaut
Bardet, Pinot, and Guerrero. Okay, you can go with Pinot. I'll go with Romain Bardet.
Okay. That'll be, I really hope those two, that would be a great battle. I think there'll be a lot of audience interest in it. Two well-known French climbers. I really, really hope they go for KOM. I haven't
Yeah.
looked at the allocation too closely. I
Wait,
hope, are they doing double points?
I think they're not doing double points. I
Please
at least
God.
heard many people say that they're not doing double points on the final mountain, which would mean that it is more likely to go to breakaway riders that actually go for KOM points.
Yep.
I hope that that's the case personally, because I don't want Pogacar to clean up every single jersey in this race.
Yeah, I agree. I think the worst thing last year was Pools and Co missing out on it. They fought so hard and they didn't get the KOM because the double points. Okay, that's KOM. Young rider, Benji. I'm not sure if Jonas is eligible for it.
No,
He's
I
not?
don't think so.
Okay.
And if he is, then it's my fault that we are not choosing him.
All right, I'll go with Tadej Pogacar. I think it'd be pretty a controversial pick.
That's a controversial pick. I think I'm also going to have to go for Tadej Pogacar. Like, if he stays on his bike, he's getting the white shirts. It's simple as that. Yeah.
Well,
I think so.
If Jonas is not eligible, then Pogacar walks it.
Yeah.
Okay. They were the pretty simple ones from my perspective. Now GC.
Podium.
We're doing the full podium?
We're doing the full podium, mate. 3, 2, and then 1.
Okay. I'm going with 3 Jonas, 2 Pog, 1 Roglic.
Okay. Roglic is going to win. Same pick as last year, then, right?
Mate, what's the quote from that Scottish Twitch streamer? Don't back
Never
down.
change a losing team?
Never back down. Double down. Fuck you. Yeah, that's what's happening. Roglic wins the Latour. He's going to clean it. Like, look, listen, you want my real take? You're 2 hours in. Okay, only the hardcore fans are listening at this point. 2020, Roglic would have cleaned it, mate. If Pogacar was who they thought he was now, Roglic would have won easily. They would have put Wout on the front stage 7, goodbye, night. Peresud, he gifted it. He thought he was his friend. He betrayed him. Stage 2021, Colbrelli, okay, is an agent of disaster, and he crashed out Roglic. Roglic would have cleaned him up, except he wouldn't have because stage 8 it rained because of anti-global warming, and so Pog still would have taken time on him. So that's a problem. But this year, we're going to have sunny weather. Okay, they got the stacked roulette team. He's not going to somehow crash in week 1 with all those tricky stages. And then we're going to get to the 40-minute climbs, and it's going to be curtains. Steep finishes, Mendy. Roglic is cleaning it. He's got the best team. Jonas is going to set him up well and counterattack and put Pog under pressure. I don't like the UAE team. Pog is overrated. And Roglic wins the Tour. Thank you for coming.
Okay, I think that Pogacar is going to win the Tour de France. I think he's going to do so ahead of 2 Jumbo riders. And I don't give a fuck what the order is of those 2 Jumbo riders. But I think it's more likely to see Jonas being in second and Roglic, that's a new rider.
Roglic and Rob Hatch. Roglic. Fluent in 6 languages, crash heavy, decent on punchy finishes. Roglic.
No.
So you're going Pog 1, Roglic, Jonas 2, Roglic 3.
Roglic 3rd.
I'm changing my order. I'm going Roglic 1, Jonas 2 because he's better than Pog as well. Pog 3. I'm not sure if Pog will podium. Nah, that's
get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, now I'm just taking
Get
the piss.
the fuck out of here. 2020, I put Pogacar on the top step. Pogacar ends up winning. 2021, I put Pogacar on the top step. Pogacar ends up winning. Well, to be honest, in 2021, it was less likely to fail than in 2020. In 2020, it was still a relatively hot take after his failure at the Dauphiné earlier that season. When it comes to this season, I think when I saw this parcours the first time around, I shouted Pogacar. I'm still saying Pogacar, and it's because I trust him to stay on his bike way more than the rest. So I've got that advantage from the start.
I think this is the worst possible parcours for Pogacar. Worst possible. High altitude, long climbs, cobbled stage where the team is not good. And I mean, as an organization, UAE are not good on cobbles, not good on these tricky stages. And I'm going with Roglic, Jonas, Pogacar. I think Thomas Martinez will fight O'Connor, Vlasov and Co. and Mas for that 4th to 6th sort of range.
One thing we have not discussed is the factor of the reactions that UAE has had in races where chaos has ensued in the past. For example, in the Giro, the day that Bora was lighting it up, they had Zwift in the breakaway. They pulled Zwift back. Cor Vos was in the breakaway for UAE. Almeida was dropping off the back in the peloton, and UAE did not respond by pulling back Cor Vos yet. They waited a while, like they did not respond instantly. Same with that Basque Country stage in 2020. Also, chaos ensues with Astana going hard on the Gorla climb, which was, I think, the second or third climb in the race. They dive into that descent. UAE was literally pacing at the front of the group when that happened with Ulisi and I think it was Micah, and they just looked around and did not respond. Then at the same time, Hirschi was in the breakaway, and UAE did not call Hirschi back in time. Like, I think the weakest part when it comes to UAE is not the team. I think it's the team car.
Yeah, that plays into it, but also like it's on the riders too. Like, do you think Soler is like going to make good decisions on the road? You know, like that's something that factors into. I think Mike is pretty savvy, but I agree with what you said. Like, I don't think it's. But then a lot of the team cars have had issues. Like INEOS have maybe not been as good the last 2 years in the car. Jumbo have had, everyone has their issues, but I agree UAE's been like they've been Movistar, like peak Movistar level bad in some stages this year, like Catalunya. That was a nightmare. So that factors into my pick as well. Like I just think there'll be trouble with the team. And team matters unless you have a 5-minute lead, and maybe Paul gets a 5-minute lead after Granon, and I look like an idiot. But if without diversity of opinion, this podcast would be pretty boring. But yeah, I think Jumbo banish the demons and they get it done with Rogla because and they win green. So I think they're gonna have a good tour. And I think, listen, I mean, Pog, you're right. Like he's so consistent. I just think. I also just think 170 is way too short. Like you must agree as well. His odds are too short.
Yeah, his odds are too short. It's a race that is, in my opinion, more open than the betting odds are telling us. But I will say that I still trust Pogacar as a GC rider more. His consistency over 3 weeks. And when it comes to not crashing than I do, for example, Jonas and Primoz, because they crash in literally every Grand Tour that they ride these days. So that's why I trust Pogacar more on this. And yes, he's got the weaker team for the first chaotic week, but he has a way of solving things solo as well that Primoz and Jonas have not shown. This is a guy that, if he's behind, he is going to attack 2 climbs out to make it happen. And he might actually pull that off. So
yeah, but he's not attacking Omar Fraile and Lutsenko now. We've got real
That's true. But if he lights it up early, then he's going to end up dropping a Kruiswijk and Silthov and the support of Jumbo. It's going to be against Jonas and Primoz then. And if it's a 1v2 battle in that situation, then you could say it's a benefit from Jumbo who can try and 1-2 him again. But if Pogacar then uses offense as his defense, because if you're in a situation with 2 other riders, 2 competitors in a group, the best way you can make sure you get out of this is by attacking yourself to make sure one of them drops, right?
Yeah, like for example, say Solaizon. O'Connor dropped, but Pogacar is able to follow those 2. Jonas is pacing as part of that attack. Pogacar notices that Primoz is not countering, sitting in the draft a lot. In that situation, what you're describing, he attacks. Roglic maybe can't follow immediately. Then Jumbo have a difficult. Then we have the Hindley-Kelderman Gegenhardt Giro situation. Do you have Jonas pace for Roglic? Does Jonas sit on Pogacar? Like, if one of them is weak, because you can't expect that Jumbo's 2 GC leaders will be 100% every day. Like, one of them might be better one day, one might be not as good the other day. But yeah, all I pray for most of all is that we have an exciting race. Last year's after the first rest day was awful, obviously, like incredibly boring stuff. And I just pray for a great race, an interesting race, and that they're fighting all the way to the final TT and on Altacam. I don't care really who it is, as long as it's a tight GC battle and they're actually fighting. That's all I pray for. Because there'll be a lot of break stages as well. But we better wrap up shortly, Benji, because Mrs. Rouge just texted me saying Tim de Klerk's out for Quickstep. Corona's already hit, so Seneschal will be in. I would assume he's first reserve for Quickstep. Sportster just posted that, I think, on Twitter. So this recording's been so long already, there's been Corona news. I'm sure there'll be other stuff like that will outdate this preview very quickly. We made sure we did it late, but that's a big blow for Quickstep. That affects, of course, Longwy, other stages for controlling, and even that stage 19. De Klerk's good. Huge shame for De Klerk. He's had a bad sort of health issues this year, I think. So, yeah, big shame, and could affect a race. And I mean, maybe Capture the Tour isn't dead. Like, geez, imagine if he goes. But yeah, that's a shame. But otherwise, Benji, where do you expect? Do you expect to be an exciting race? Do you think they've done a parcours that will? I think it's a little misc break heavy. I think there's one or two too many misc break stages.
I think so as well. I don't like these breakaway stages in week 2 being 3 consecutive ones. I would like to see something more enticing in that second week. So I hope there's some kind of race situation that occurs that makes one of those stages actually GC, but it's not very likely, is it? So,
like Foix.
Yeah, I think parcours-wise, I give it about a 7.5 out of 10.
Yep.
Nothing outrageous, nothing too crazy, but I think just like every year, the riders make the race, and if we don't see anyone of the 3 GC favorites be outside of a minute or 2 minutes in GC after week 1, then this could be a very good fucking Tour de France.
Oh, yeah. Like, this is when you think of the epic moments. You think of that Sastre attack on Alpe d'Huez. You think of these, that's what you want to see, and that's what I'm just praying for, that we have a great battle. But thanks to Zwift. Make sure you join the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast Zwift Club through the link down below. Give us your picks, roast our picks, roast my double down if you don't like it, if you think Pog is winning because you can't see the wood for the trees, / you are smarter than me. Let us know. And yeah, we've really enjoyed doing this podcast. We've enjoyed your support. It's a lot of work putting this one together. If you want to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or give us a rating or review on podcast players, that's a big way to help us out and support us. Or follow us on Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast Twitter account. Thanks as always. We'll see you at the recap of stage 1 on Saturday. And yeah, see you then. Ciao.